are a number of settlement schemes in that region, which for the longest time have had serious issues with land ownership. I personally was in Embu on Monday, and I visited a ward called Karaba and Makema. In those two regions, Mr. Speaker, we have huge populations of people from the Kamba extraction who have occupied those pieces of land since independence. There are also the Mbeere who have occupied that land. The Embu are there. We have Kikuyus who are there. The Karaba and Madhima wards are a cosmopolitan ward in a rural setting. And yet this threat of eviction keeps hanging on the necks of these people since independence. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this, that the Constitution of Kenya is very clear, that any Kenyan can own property and live anywhere in this country. It's actually very unfortunate that one of the leaders, who I will not mention because the standing orders don't allow me to mention people because I cannot substantiate their actions. Mr. Speaker, there is an elected leader
Order members
who was even threatening an elected leader from Embu.
Order members.
Who was even threatening us, an entourage led by His Excellency Dr. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka on Monday, that we should not visit Karaba and we should not visit Madhima. With a threat that if we visit, we should not mention anything to do with land. Mr. Speaker, these matters are serious. And I want to stand on the floor of the Senate today, Mr. Speaker, and reassure the people of Karaba and the people of Madhima that they are occupying that land by right. That they are not there as squatters, they are not there as invited guests, they are there by right as Kenyans. They should continue occupying the land that they have occupied since independence. They should establish permanent buildings in that land, and the government of Kenya has a responsibility and a duty of care to issue those people with title deeds. So Speaker, this thing about title deeds that we keep talking about, you would think that title deeds are a process, I don't know from heaven or from where. The Speaker, those people in Embu who have a legitimate claim on land should be issued with title deeds for them to settle and do their business. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I support.
Senator Samson Cherargei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, because I want to support the petitioners who have brought this petition, the Mutaratara sublocation Mbeere North in Embu County. Speaker, I want to propose two quick solutions, and I hope members of Lands Committee and Environment are here. One, Mr. Speaker, because it looks from their petition that there is already fear of evictions. I want to request that the Committee on Lands order that status quo be maintained until adjudication of the said area is being finalized and discussed. Mr. Speaker, secondly, the necessary adjudication process should commence forthwith and ensure people who show ownership and possession of the said land should ensure that they are given title deeds, Mr. Speaker. I think title deeds is a basic document that should be given to any right deserving Kenyan, Mr. Speaker. The reason I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, if they are evicted, you know, in this country there is a disease called grabiosis. Mr. Speaker, if they are evicted, we cannot know who will be allowed back to the said area that is occupied by these said individuals from Mbeere North and in Embu County. Mr. Speaker, the issue of boundary, I hope and we believe that the county boundaries bill should be processed forthwith to ensure that whenever there are disputes concerning boundaries, Mr. Speaker, it should be resolved at any given chance, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I support this petition. The prayers that has been given by these people of Mutarantara sublocation, Mr. Speaker, is within their right. I hope in the next 14 days, Mr. Speaker, if you, through your indulgence, I know there is timeline under the petitions, that you can order that the said committee reports back with progress, Mr. Speaker. We hate to see people being evicted, losing their land, being robbed their dignity, losing their houses, Mr. Speaker. And I know the issue of land is not only, Mr. Speaker, an issue that concerns Embu. Even Nandi, we have similar issues. And we are trying to work with the government. I want to encourage the people of Embu to work with the government of the day and the Ministry of Lands to ensure they access those documentation. Because where I come from, Ibit Koibem Exchange Program, where we share border with my brother, Senator Otsosi, among other areas in Nandi, Mr. Speaker, we are working closely to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we go into the future. Mr. Speaker, finally, it is wrong for any Kenyan to be denied to visit any part of this country. The allegations that have been made by Deputy Minority Leader is not, Mr. Speaker, it is not a statement that we should encourage. Every leader in this country should allow to be visited. Mr. Speaker, but did you notice the Deputy Minority Leader sounds agitated? I don't know, because Raila Odinga has decided to take the AU chairmanship, or what is happening, or the paradise is not safe, Mr. Speaker, or is no longer enjoyable. But we wish him and Kalonzo all the best, Mr. Speaker. I thank you and I submit.
Senator Onyoka Richard.
Asante ndugu Spika. Nimesikia ndugu yangu Mheshimiwa Cherargei kila wakati akizungumza. Tena nimeanza hivi karibuni kufikiria kuwa kila wakati anapozungumza siasa anakumbuka mzee Raila. Sijui kama akiwa kitandane na bibi yake, kama Raila huingia hapo katikati akamsumbua akaharibu hewa yake. Lakini kwa kuja kwa kinagobaga, ndugu Spika, ningependa kusema hivi. Kuna jambo ambalo limeletwa kwa hili jumba la Seneti. Na hili ni swala ama masuala ya ardhi. Zamani tulikuwa nafikiria kuwa masuala ya ardhi na wasumbua wakaaji wa eneo la Pwani. Tulikuwa nafikiria masuala ya ardhi inawasumbua watu wa eneo la bonde la Ufa, ama masuala ya ardhi yanasumbua wale watu ambao ni wakaazi wa Nairobi. Lakini ndugu Spika, shida tunayo hapa nchini kwetu ni kuwa swala la ardhi lazima tujipange, tuhakikishe kuwa hili jumba la Seneti ukichukua kamati ambayo inahusika kwa hili jambo, tujaribu kutafuta suluhu ya kudumu ili tuweze kusuluhisha shida ambazo tunazo kuhusu ardhi za nchi yetu ya Kenya. Ndugu Spika, ukiangalia hili jambo, ugumu wake umeingia tena, haswa ukiangalia kuwa Rais Mheshimiwa William Ruto ameleta jambo ama ameleta ratiba ama mpango wa kuanza kujenga manyumba katika maeneo wakilishi ama katika kaunti zetu zote nchini Kenya. Ukienda eneo la bonde la Ufa kule Trans Nzoia, juzi kulikuwa na matangazo kuwa rais alisema wale ambao wana mashamba, zamani yalikuwa mashamba ya kiserikali ambayo yalikuwa yanasimamiwa na idara ya jela, yarudishwe kwa serikali. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukija uangalie hapa Thika kuna shida na shamba ya Del Monte. Mpaka wakati huu hatujapata suluhu. Ndugu Spika, ukitoka hapo ukienda bonde la Ufa, ningependa kumpa Mheshimiwa Cherargei na wenzetu kwa sababu wamefanya kazi mzuri. Ukienda Kericho, wakaaji wa kaunti ya Kericho na kampuni zile ambazo zinakuza chai wameanza kuzungumzia swala la ardhi katika eneo la kaunti ya Kericho. Ukiangalia haya masuala yote, ndugu Spika, na wewe unatoka eneo hilo na nimekuona ukishughulika kuhusu haya mambo, ningependa wale ambao mna fursa kuzungumza na rais na mawaziri wake wanaoshughulika na mambo ya ardhi, tafadhali tukubaliwe tuanze kuangalia masuala ya ardhi na ile migogoro ambayo imetokea, ili sisi kama viongozi na rais wa nchi yetu na wale wote wahusika tujaribu kusuluhisha hili jambo kwa heshima, kwa haki na kwa kisheria. Hilo ndilo jambo ningependa kuuliza ndugu zangu wale mko hapa. Hili jambo la ardhi ama mizozo ya ardhi nchini Kenya, ingewezekana tujaribu kama seneti, tuchukue kamati yetu tujiuzishe ili tujaribu kutafuta suluhu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiona vile Wakenya wanafurushwa kutoka manyumba yao, mara unaambiwa court order imefurushwa, mara unaambiwa askari wamenunuliwa hawawezi kuenda wakahakikisha kuwa ile court order ya kusimamisha wale wanaobomoa wasibomoe. Haya mambo yote yatafanya nchi yetu, hata wale wananchi wa Kenya na wale wengine ambao si wa Kenya wangependa kuleta hela zao ili wakuje kukuza rasilimali nchi yetu. Kama hatutapata suluhu kuhusu haya mambo ya mashamba, ambako kwa kizungu nasema the land question in Kenya must be sorted out for us to continue moving effectively as a country. Nchi ambayo, pole sana, nchi ambayo inaheshimika, nchi ambayo inafuata sheria, nchi ambayo yule ambaye mwekezaji anakuja nchini Kenya kuja kuwekeza mali yake ajue kuwa anakuja kuwekeza hela zake mahala ambako sheria inafuatiliwa na hamna shida kuhusu mambo ya mashamba. Kumalizia, ndugu Spika, tunapojadilia na kuangalia hili jambo, ndugu Spika, ushasafiri na umeenda kule Rwanda, na Wakenya ndio walitengeneza huu mpango. Ukienda Rwanda utaangalia shamba ya mtu, hata uwe Marekani utajua namba ni gani, utajua kama kuna mtu anakaa kwa hiyo shamba, utajua kama imejengwa, ilijengwa mwaka gani, utajua ni hela gani za kiserikali, taxes ambao zimelipwa, utajua kwa hiyo shamba. Na kama mwenye hiyo shamba anaanza kuiuza, ndugu Spika, utaona hiyo habari hapo. Na nani anatengeneza hayo yote? Wakenya. Lakini ukisema sisi Wakenya tuketi tujaribu kusuluhisha hizi mashida zote, vile unapata shamba moja ina title deed kama 12, unapata mama mjane bwanaka alikufa, unapata watu wanaenda wanamuondoa kwa shamba, hata chief hawezi kusema kitu. Hili jambo la kusuluhisha shida za mashamba Kenya nchini, ndugu Spika, kamati ambayo inahusika na mambo ya mashamba hapa kamati kwa seneti yetu wajaribu iwezekanavyo, ili tuketi, wengi wetu ni wazee na tunajua, tujaribu kutafuta sheria suluhu, ili Wakenya wajue kuwa sheria inalinda mali na rasilimali yao. Asante ndugu Spika.
Senator James Murango.
Asante sana Mstahiki Spika. Kwanza ningetaka kusimama na maombi ya wakazi wa Mutantara kuhusu maneno yanayohusu hati miliki ya ardhi. Mstahiki Spika, mimi nimetoka eneo la Kirinyaga na sana kuna sehemu inaitwa Mwea. Mwaka 2020 niliwahi kuzika nyanyangu akiwa na miaka 118. Sikuwa nafaa kufanya hivyo kimira, lakini alikuwa nafaa kuzikwa na kijanake mkubwa mwanaume. Sababu ni kwamba Mwea mpaka saa hii toka enzi za ukoloni hawajawahi kupata hati miliki ya mashamba yao, na wanalazimishwa kuzika watu wote katika makamburi ambayo yamejaa, makamburi ambayo hawezi panuliwa kwa sasa. Mstahiki Spika, miaka ambayo imepita, watu wamezaana, watoto wamejaa, vijana wamejaa, lakini yale mashamba, wale wenye mashamba mpaka sasa hawezi yakatakata kuridhiwa na watoto wao kwa sababu hati miliki hakuna. South Gariama kuna shinda kama hiyo upande wa Kirinyaga. Mwea irrigation scheme bado kuna shinda hiyo, Mstahiki Spika. Na ili kuwezesha jamii kuweza kuimarika kiuchumi, lazima tuhakikishe ya kwamba wale wanaolia kwamba wanataka hati miliki waweze kupewa zile hati miliki, kwa sababu sana sana inawasaidia pia kiuchumi, kwa sababu ukiwa na hati miliki pia unaweza ingia kwa benki na ukaweza kupata mkopo wa kustawisha na kufanya maisha yako iwe rahisi. Mstahiki Speaker, kidogo naona ile jambo la hati miliki katika eneo la South Ngaliama linashughulikiwa na waziri, lakini pia kuna mambo mengi, kwa sababu shamba ikiachwa kwa muda mrefu sana inakuja na madhara yake. Lakini sasa tukishikana kama viongozi tutahakikisha kwamba waliokuwa katika ile shamba wanaangaliwa. Kuna mambo mengi Mstahiki Speaker, sana sana kama hilo jambo la Mudhantara. Unapata wakati mipaka ilikuwa inawekwa kati ya Tharaka Nithi na Embu, kwamba wale ambao ni wa Embu wengine mipaka ikiwekwa walivukishwa mipaka kwa upande wa Tharaka Nithi. Kwa hivyo wao wanajihusisha bando na wa Embu wanavuka kupiga kura sehemu nyingine ya Embu, lakini mashamba iko katika eneo la Tharaka Nithi. Na kwa sababu hilo jambo limewekwa kwa muda mrefu sana bila kusuluhishwa, wakati mwingine inaleta maafa, na nimeona maafa Kirinyaga, najua hata kule nimesikia kukiwa na maafa. Kwa hivyo ni vizuri watu wazingatie, na si lazima mtu apewe shamba kwa sababu ametoka huku na mwingine. Kama kuna wale waliokuwa wameshikilia ile shamba kwa muda mrefu, hata kama ametoka wapi, waweze kuangaliwa na pewe hati miliki ili kuhakikisha kwamba kuna usawa kwa Wakenya wote. Asante sana Mstahiki Speaker.
Senator Mwenye Haji.
Asante Mheshimiwa Spika kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia ardhi hali ambayo imeletwa na wakazi wa Embu kudai ardhi ambayo wamekalia na kumiliki kwa muda wote huu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ni masikitiko kwamba miaka karibu 61 ya uhuru bado tunalilia ardhi ambazo ni zetu na ni za jadi. Sioni sababu gani serikali ipiganie kujenga majumba kwa wakazi ambao hata ardhi hawana. Utapata labda kaunti ya Embu inapigana kujengea watu wake ardhi, nyumba, lakini kwa sasa ardhi za wakazi hakuna. Watu wanakaa katika ardhi yao na wanaitwa kama squatter, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hivyo ningependekeza Mheshimiwa Spika kwamba kitambo kamati izuru ama iangalie swala hili, wapewe nafasi ya kuwaita watu wa National Land Commission, Land Registrar wa Embu, Land Adjudication Officer, waeleze ni kwa sababu gani wale watu hawezi kuruhusiwa kukaa pale mpaka wakati itakamilika ile inaitwa adjudication process, ugawanyaji wa shamba lile, ili wale ambao wako pale sasa na wameleta maombi yao katika bunge hili wasiweze kufurushwa kama tulivyoona watu wanafurushwa sehemu tofauti tofauti. Mheshimiwa Spika, imekuwa ni jambo la kawaida sasa watu kufurushwa katika makazi yao. Mapema katikati ya mwezi uliokwisha, wakazi wa Changamwe National Housing walifurushwa asubuhi bila ya court order, bila ya stakabadhi yoyote ya kisheria ya kuwataka waondoke mahali pale. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, lazima kama nchi, kwa sababu tunajua kwamba ni haki ya kila Mkenya kupata nyumba ama kupata makao ya kudumu, lakini imebadilika sasa kwamba inakuwa ni serikali ndio inavunja makao ya wananchi katika sehemu tofauti tofauti. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, hili ni swala nyeti, ni lazima kamati ya ardhi ilivalie njuga kwa haraka ili tuone kwamba wale wakazi wa Embu wameweza kupata makao ya kudumu katika ardhi ambazo wamezikalia kutoka jadi. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Korir Chepkwet Joyce.
Asante. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Allow me to first welcome the honorable members to this that session. Honorable Speaker, I know they are energized and ready to work, and I want to also appreciate them for the work that they have been doing during the recess. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I want to support the members or the citizens of Embu County on the issues of the land that they are requesting to be issued with title deeds. Honorable Speaker, the issue of land is a very emotive issue. This is an issue that is affecting citizens across the country. This is one of the issues that has been even giving us conflicts within the communities. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this is an issue that needs to be addressed right from the county or from the grassroots, Honorable Speaker. I know, Honorable Speaker, if this thing is going to be handled in the right way, we are going to remove this menace which has been year in, year out. I want to say that it is so shameful to see our hustlers having struggled for more than 20 years, having put up some houses and properties, or let me say houses, and within a day it's brought down by the same government. Yet the same government is the one that is also issuing the title deeds or the documents. I want to say that this is issues that does not start with the citizens. It starts with the government. And I want to say that it is high time that the relevant CS should streamline and make sure that things are handled in the right way, to an extent that these people get their documents. Honorable Speaker, I'm also briefing to a number of institutions, public institutions, which are running without the title deeds. Yes, it's a public institution, Honorable Speaker. I want to say that it's high time that the committee of these houses should come down and sit down and up their game in terms of oversight to make sure that this is really the issues of documents is put straight and given back to the members of the public. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I just want to support them, and I want to say that it is high time that we have the game. Thank you.
Senator Okongo Omogeni.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for also giving me an opportunity to make my contribution on this petition. Mr. Speaker, you know, a petition under Article 119 is one way that direct to the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, it's a demonstration of the kind of faith that Kenyans have in this House. So, Mr. Speaker, when we get a petition from Kenyans, diligent Kenyans like one Peter Kangwaru Nyaga and his 24 colleagues, we should take it seriously, Mr. Speaker, because it's a demonstration that these Kenyans have faith that once they petition this House, we will do something, Mr. Speaker. And once they listen to Senator Mundigi speaking passionately for them, Mr. Speaker, they expect answers from this House. The first point I want to make, Mr. Speaker, it is, you know, it's bordering on shame, collective shame for us as a nation, that Kenyans can be petitioning this House, complaining that they have never been issued with titles 60 years after independence. 60 years. It's a collective shame, Mr. Speaker. And if you read the petition, Mr. Speaker, these Kenyans have saying they have knocked in all government offices. So this is the last call, the last point of call. If we don't solve this problem, they have nowhere to go, Mr. Speaker. Why, Mr. Speaker, should we be issuing titles to Kenyans in piecemeal? Why should Kenyans in Kakamega County have title deeds, but Kenyans in Embu don't have a title deed? Why? Mr. Speaker, this is a petition that we should summon the top level government officers, beginning with the CS, lands, to tell us why these poor Kenyans have been denied a right in the Constitution. Because we have a very progressive Constitution as a country, the 2010 Constitution, that recognizes the land rights of Kenyans. In fact, the Constitution says, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that Kenyans should have security to land rights. It means people in Embu don't have any security to land rights. They cannot go to any bank, borrow money to educate their children. They cannot go to any bank, present security to borrow money to do business. It's a shame, Mr. Speaker. So I hope the committee that is going to inquire into this matter should take it seriously. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we should summon even the Kenyan National Human Rights Commission to come and tell us what they have done to ensure that the rights of these Kenyans, their land rights, are respected. Mr. Speaker, honestly, what we should be discussing as a nation, 60 years after independence, is how Kenyans can make good use of their title deeds. Not having a discussion that there are Kenyans who have been left behind, they have never had a title deed 60 years after independence. I plead, Mr. Speaker, with the committee that is going to be tasked with this matter to go into the, the highest level of inquiry to ensure that this problem of these 25 Kenyans is solved, so that Mr. Peter Nyaga can one day rise up and say, I approached the Senate of the Republic of Kenya and my issue on failure to get title deeds was resolved. If we don't do that, Mr. Speaker, we will not build confidence, the confidence of Kenyans on this House. With those remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support.
Honorable Senators, everyone else in the House deserves to give a contribution to this petition. The time allocated to this is 30 minutes from when we started. We are not within the 30 minutes timeline, and that was the last member to contribute. We will, when the committee has been tasked with this, deal with that issue. So allow us to progress to the next stage. And Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 238-1, the petition is hereby committed to the Standing Committee on Land, Environment and Natural Resources for its consideration. In terms of Standing Order 238-2, the committee is required in not more than 60 calendar days from the time of reading the prayer to respond to the petitioner by way of a report addressed to the petitioner and laid on the table of the Senate. I thank you. Clerk, next order.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader, proceed to lay the papers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of this Senate today, the 15th Tuesday, February 2024. This, Mr. Speaker, are 1. Annual Corporate Report of the Office of the Auditor General for the year 2022-2023. Annual Report of the Judicial Service Commission, JSC, for financial year 2022-23. Biannual Report of the Commission on Administration of Justice, CAJ, for the period January to June 2023. 4. The Report of the Auditor General for water companies for financial year 2021-22. 5. Summary Report of the Auditor General for water companies for the financial year 2021-22. Annual Report and audited financial statements of the Teacher Service Commission for financial year 2022-23. 7. Report of the Auditor General on financial statement of Thika Level 5 Hospital for the year ended 30th of June 2022. And 8. Report of the Auditor General on financial statement of Machakos Bursary Fund for the year ended 30th of June 2023. And 9. Report of the Auditor General on the financial statement of Wajir County Disability Fund for the year ended 30th of June 2023. Mr. Speaker, I think there's another one which I'm missing here. Mr. Speaker, with those many statements, I thank you and I lay the papers. This one, Mr.
Senator Professor Margaret Kamar.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 15 February 2024. Report of the 66th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Accra, Ghana, from the 30th September to the 6th October 2023.
Clerk, you may now call the next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Professor Kamari, Senator Professor Kamari, this is also your notice. You may proceed to give the notice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the Senate notes the report of the 66th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference held in Accra, Ghana, from the 30th September to the 6th October 2023. Thank you.
Next order. Sorry, there is, yes, Chairperson, Energy Committee, Senator Kisang. On behalf of the Chairperson, you may also proceed to give the notice.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that the Senate adopts the report of the Standing Committee on Energy on the inquiry into the high cost of electricity in the country, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 27th September 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Call the next order. Yes, Senator Chergay.
Mr. Speaker, I raise pass one to Standing Order 37, that the Senate do adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the untimely death of the current marathon world record holder, Mr. Kevin Kiptum, through a road tragic accident along Kaptagat Eldoret Road. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I request members to stand and support.
Members, I ascertain that it has attracted massive support and the threshold has been met. I therefore nominate 5:30 p.m. to discuss the said motion when the Senate will adjourn to deal with that particular motion. Clerk, call the next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Senator Crystal Asig.
Thank you, Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding the registration without consent of teachers with disabilities by the Kenya Union of Special Needs Education Teachers, KUSNET. In this statement, the committee should provide a list of all teachers with disabilities currently employed by the Teachers Service Commission, specifying their trade union affiliation and providing duly executed registrations and consent forms, where a teacher is a member of a union. Clarify whether the teachers have freedom to join trade unions of their choice, as is their constitutional right, and if so, explain why some of them have, without their consent, been registered as members of the Kenyan Union of Special Needs Education Teachers and have continually been deducted monthly union dues. Ascertain that the entire membership of KUSNET is verifiably genuine and conforms to the union's registration guidelines. And outline remedial measures being taken to address the matter, as well as refund all deductions made so far with respect to the improper registration of teachers with disabilities to this union. I'm just pulling up my second speaker.
Proceed, Senator Crystal.
Yes, Speaker. Give me a moment, kindly. Thank you, Speaker. I rise pursuant, again, to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Education on the concerns raised by teachers with disabilities with regards to the Disability Guide Allowance. In this statement, the committee should clarify the most recent Disability Guide Allowance scales and figures published by the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, whose purpose is to assist persons with disabilities employ personal aids or sighted guides in order to support them in their employment duties, and confirm the Disability Guide Allowance renewal process, if any, and how often this renewal is required. If renewal is required, elucidate to the Senate the reasons behind the Teachers Service Commission subjecting teachers with disabilities who are eligible to the Disability Guide Allowance a long renewal process with significantly delayed approvals, thereby placing our already vulnerable educators with disabilities needing the support of personal aids to perform their duties to more challenging environments. And provide comprehensive details on the compensation for interns with disabilities contracted by TSC, including whether they receive the Disability Guide Allowance. If this allowance is not provided, offer an explanation as to why this has not been considered, understanding, of course, the essential role that personal aids and sighted guides play in their functions to support interns with disabilities in the Teachers Service Commission. I thank you.
Honorable Senators, I have communication from the Chair with regards to visiting teachers and students from Giaki Girls Secondary School in Meru County. Honorable Senators, in the public gallery, we have 47 students accompanied by 4 teachers from Giaki Girls Secondary School in Meru County who are undertaking an educational visit in the Senate. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a fruitful visit. I thank you. I will request the Senator for Nairobi County, Senator Sifuna, to welcome this visiting delegation on behalf of the Senator for Meru.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You caught me a bit of unawares there, but I will take this opportunity to, on behalf of my colleague from Meru, who is also our Deputy Speaker, the able Senator for Meru, to welcome all of you to the Senate. I hope that you have a fruitful visit. I hope that you get to visit both chambers of Parliament. You get to sit in on a few of contributions from the members of the Senate today and see what you can pick up and learn from those contributions. As the Senator of Nairobi, I want to welcome you to the city as well and enjoy your stay in this place and learn as much as you can in your time in the visit to the Senate. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator Sifuna. Senator Fatuma Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish you can allow me to read the 3 statements together. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Orders 53-1 to seek statement from the Standing Committee on Roads, Transport and Housing on the status of project being undertaken by the county government of Isiolo. In the statement, the committee should provide a list of all the county projects, including their respective locations and status of completion, as well as breakdown of budgetary allocation for projects and expenditure for the financial year 2022-2023 and 2023-2024. Number 2, provide the timelines for completion of each project, stating any delays encountered and outlining any mitigation plans put in place. 3, provide the details of any new projects planned for implementation by the county government in the near future. Number 2, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-126 statement from the Standing Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding recruitment and employment at the county government of Isiolo. In the statement, provide a copy of the human resource policies and procedures manuals, including relevant policies that guide recruitment and employment by the county government of Isiolo. Provide a list of personnel currently employed by the county executive and assembly, specifying their terms of engagement, whether permanent and pensionable, fixed term contract or casual. Number 3, furnish the Senate with the payroll for both the executive and a county assembly, clearly indicating the salary and allowances entitled to each employee. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-126 statement from the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget regarding pending bills in Isiolo County Government. In the statement, number 1, provide comprehensive breakdown of the total pending bills for Isiolo County Government from the financial year 2013-2014 to the financial year 2022-2023, categorized by each spending line. 2, provide reasons for the accumulated pending bills, stating the duration for which each bill has remained unresolved. Number 3, present an exclusive account of the payments made towards settling of pending bills since the establishment of Isiolo County Government. Finally, elucidate on the existing strategies implemented by the county government aimed at addressing the pending bills and preventing the accumulation of pending bills in the future. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Edwin Sifuna got a statement as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53-1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on National Security, Defense and Foreign Relations regarding the frequent incidents of fire in the city county of Nairobi. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, state whether the fire outbreaks that occurred in Juakali area along Landis Road on 30th January 2024 and in Kijiji area in Langata on 11th February 2024 were acts of arson, and if so, explain the steps taken to bring to book the culprits. Number 2, explain the disaster response mechanisms in place in Nairobi City County, stating factors that contribute to the slow or no response at all to fire disasters such as the ones I've mentioned in one above. Number 3, Mr. Speaker, establish the culpability of both national and county government officers whose negligence has occasioned losses to citizens through such preventable disasters. And finally, state measures put in place to protect the residents of Nairobi from such fire disasters, as well as compensate them for any domestic and commercial losses resulting therefrom. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, we are deferring statement pursuant to Standing Order 57-1, supposedly to have been given by the Senate Majority Leader on the business of the House for the week commencing 20th February 2024 to the next session. Call the next order, Clerk. Honorable members, we are going to rearrange the order of business for today. We will leave out order number 8, order number 9, number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and we will proceed with order number 17. Clerk, proceed to call that order.
Order number 17, the Water Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 33 of 2023, second reading.
Senator Muma, I believe you were on the floor and you had a balance of 17 minutes to speak to the bill. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to contribute to the conversation on the Water Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker, in my first 3 minutes, I had raised the need for this House to stay true to its mandate in Article 96, being the protection of devolution. I also urged our colleagues on the majority side to help us to ensure that laws that are coming from the National Assembly that are being hurried through this House still meet the obligation under Article 96. I want to reiterate that this amendment bill is one of those bills that actually offends the Constitution when it comes to devolution. And because we have students in the gallery, I would want members to know that the water function is a devolved function, and in the 4th schedule, which is the schedule that assigns functions to the 2 levels of government, the national government is assigned the role of protection of the environment and natural resources with a view to establishing durable and sustainable systems of development, including in particular, C, water protection, securing sufficient residual water, hydraulic engineering, and the safety of dams. Mr. Speaker, the role of government national government in addition to this is developing national policy, national standards, and the regulation of matters relating to water. The county government, on the other hand, is the one that is assigned the water service provision. And it includes county public works and services, including stormwater management systems in built-up areas and water and sanitation services. Mr. Speaker, when you read through this amendment bill, the proposal here is to actually take the function of providing water services and assign it to a national government corporation, and not just one, but 2 national government, 2 types of national government corporations. Mr. Speaker, the Water Act 2016 established a number of bodies, including the Water Resources Authority, the National Water Harvesting Storage Authority, the Water Works Development Agencies, among other national government bodies with specific roles that they are supposed to carry out. In this bill, it is being proposed that functions that belong to county water companies be given to the National Water Harvesting Storage Authority, whose functions are limited to developing infrastructure for managing water resources during emergency and during the drought time. Now, this authority, which is the former National Water Pipeline Authority, has, through the back door, tried to usurp functions that are actually provided to the water companies. So basically what we are being told from the first clause to the end, we are just reorganizing the amendments to ensure that this authority is assigned functions that belong to a county government. Mr. Speaker, I would call on this House to ensure that we do not pass this law, because if we pass it, it will offend the Constitution. It will also be stopped by the courts. So as a House in this third session, I am calling upon us to rise up and be the House that does what 96 calls upon us to do. They have suggested a number of changes in the definition. For instance, in section 2, they are proposing to introduce new language that it brings in a contracting authority, which is at the national government, a state department, agency, or state corporation which intends to have its functions undertaken by a private party. Mr. Speaker, when this bill was introduced in this House, we were told that it was trying to bring in a PPP that would enable faster delivery of services. Mr. Speaker, I want to tell this House that there exists a PPP law in this country. That PPP law is skewed towards helping the national government, and it can actually be used. And nothing stops that PPP law being used from getting a private actor, for instance, to build a dam in this country. So this addition here and the suggestion that this is supposed to bring in the PPP does not help. The PPP Act excluded county governments, did not properly provide for county governments. And the Water Act in section 96 actually provides ways in which the county governments and county entities can actually enter into a PPP. So county water companies are enabled to be able to enter into PPPs under the Water Act. But the amendments being proposed in this law are actually clawing back on the powers given to counties to actually provide that power. So, Mr. Speaker, from that and moving on to the next clause, which is clause 3, on amending section 32, it is proposing new clauses that suggest that the water companies or agencies may enter into bulk purchase agreements with an investor. Now, the purchasing and selling of water services is a county function. So you can see clearly in that clause 3, we are trying to enable authorities that should not be entering into the selling and purchasing of water to actually do so. This is a function in section 77 that belongs to the county companies. I'm urging all of you to read the Constitution, read the Water Act, and then read this amendment bill, and you will be able to see the mischief that I am talking about. It is about removing functions that belong to water companies that are county and diluting that power in section 77 and beefing up the functions of the Water Resources Storage and Harvesting Authority in section 32, and the water agencies, and all of you know that we have about 9 water agencies that belong to national government, to give them powers to do what the water companies are supposed to be doing in in section 77. Mr. Speaker, Article 189 of the Constitution is the article that provides for intergovernmental relations. The Water Act contemplated this and provided for opportunities in which the national government can cooperate with the county governments and how county governments can cooperate with each other. And this kind of cooperation was that national government may develop waterworks of the national nature. Waterworks of the national nature might be taking care of a water resource that is taking care of more than one county, or one that is intended to provide services to a national entity. For instance, if we want to develop a dam with the sole purpose of providing water to the National Defense Forces. Mr. Speaker, but because national government has the technical know-how and has the function of giving technical support to counties, this act allows national government to develop public waterworks, momentarily provide services as they transition them to either county governments or joint committees or joint authorities by counties as contemplated in Article 189(2) of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, it is under Article 189(2) that regional blocks have been put in place. And Mr. Speaker, this House should be encouraging the collaboration between counties, the intergovernmental cooperation between counties to develop services within the regions instead of reversing those services and bringing them back to the national government. So the manner in which this bill has been provided, in my view, reverses devolution. And we need to ask ourselves as we look at this law, one, it is not as urgent as we were being told. We were told this law must pass quickly because it is delaying the government's plan to deliver development. I cannot see anything here urgent. The urgent thing here is to try and revive the former national pipeline, water pipeline, as was, give it resources and functions that do not belong to that institution. I am urging all of us to look at this seriously and actually see how we can streamline this sector. One, we have 9 national, regional water companies. We also have county water service providers, each county having its own. Mr. Speaker, under another ministry, we also have regional development authorities with water functions. I am calling on this House to actually take this matter seriously. There was once I suggested that we even form a water committee because we don't have a water committee. Water is part of environment, land, and whatever else, and as a result, we are not seriously looking at this function. I am suggesting that this House consider setting up a water committee to streamline what is happening in the water committee. Finally, I want us, that team, to also be able to look at the Abdikadir report that actually recommended the rationalization of functions of state corporations. What we are being told to do here is to multiply, to reverse devolution and create more parastatals that we should be winding up. I want us to be that brave House that will stay true to the Constitution of Kenya and to devolve governance system and do what is right. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I wish to call upon our Secretariat, even if a law originates from the National Assembly. I'm calling upon you because I know your brilliant team. Please do a proper analysis of these laws against the Constitution and share with every member so that as we contribute to these laws, we are able to do justice to what our mandate is as the Senate. I oppose this bill, Mr. Chair.
Senator Shirokei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very interesting bill, Mr. Speaker. I want from the onset to make a few remarks. Mr. Speaker, allow me to say a few things about this bill so that members can have a chance Mr. Speaker, the Water Amendment Bill of 2023, Bill number 33 of 2023. My opening remarks, Mr. Speaker, I hope in future the way we prioritize bills of the National Assembly, I hope also the National Assembly should prioritize our bills, because most of the time, Mr. Speaker, when we have a bill that comes from the National Assembly, it is normally given a priority. So I hope going into the future, Mr. Speaker, we can be able to also convince our brothers and sisters in the lower house to be considerate and ensure, Mr. Speaker, that they prioritize the bills, especially in enriching, widening, and developing devolution in this country, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, before I make remarks, I want to pass my deepest empathies and sympathies to the people of Baringo County, Mr. Speaker. In the last 1 or 2 months, we have lost a number of more than 20 people through the insecurity and banditry, Mr. Speaker. And one of the unique cases, Mr. Speaker, is the recent head teacher that was being shot, who was blind. Interestingly, about the life of that teacher, Mr. Speaker, and it explains about insecurity in Baringo, is he was shot when he was young in 1978, and he lost the sight. Unfortunately, again, the bullet of the bandit has killed the same teacher, Mr. Speaker. So our hearts goes out to them, to the great people of Baringo, Mr. Speaker, and I hope going into the future, the runaway security should be addressed forthwith and ensure our people enjoy their security. And I remember a senator from Nyamira a few moments ago, Mr. Speaker, said about enjoyment of rights. I hope the great people of Baringo can enjoy security as a matter of right, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, the third point I want to make is that there is nothing unusual about this bill. I have studied carefully, Mr. Speaker. This bill is trying to ensure that each and every Kenyan gets access to water. You remember, Mr. Speaker, when we had an issue of, was it Muranga? When they were Muranga tunnel that was supposed to supply water that needs for domestic use or industrial use in this city. Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest challenges, including Nairobi City County and other major towns in this country, Mr. Speaker, one of the biggest challenge is access to clean and safe water, Mr. Speaker. Almost 80% of diseases are waterborne diseases, either consumption or drinking of not safe and dirty water, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, any bill or any law that comes up from either side that will continue to ensure Kenyans access to clean and safe water, Mr. Speaker, should be encouraged. From the reading of this water amendment bill, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that it tries and brings public partnership, the PPP. Mr. Speaker, you know government is not in the business of doing business. So this, when you look at the definition under Section 2, it gives contracting authority, both national and the county governments. Mr. Speaker, as we discuss, we need only, because I know nowadays we have what we call County Public Investment Committee, CPIC, where water companies, non-revenue water, our companies are being run, Mr. Speaker, the water works that are there, Mr. Speaker, is that we need to be more careful. The issue should be, we have seen most of the water companies in counties are not being run properly. They are either being run down. There is a lot of revenue called non-revenue water, Mr. Speaker. There is normally a lot of challenges with our water companies, especially at the county level, Mr. Speaker. We have like, I think one of the best run companies is Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company, among others, Mr. Speaker. It's one of the best run in the country, Mr. Speaker. But when you look at Nairobi Water and Sanitation Company, Thanati, Lake Victoria North and South, Mr. Speaker, and many other waterworks, Mr. Speaker, are companies and waterworks that are just wasting a lot of our money, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my proposal, and I can see the immediate former Wazingishu governor is excited that I have mentioned Eldoret's Water and Sanitation Company. I think he might have an input in proper running of that water company. Mr. Speaker, what we need to do at this country, we need to stop these waterworks. There are so many for nothing. Lake Victoria North waterworks, they are just employment bureaus. The assets they own is disaster. They only crippling our resources. But if you ask what they have done, you cannot, even the assets. They are most of the going concerns, Mr. Speaker, most of waterworks in this country. Like where we have like Victoria Water North Company, Mr. Speaker, I'm part of, Nandi is part of that region, but we are yet to see substantive fruits. Mr. Speaker, when you go to the offices in Kakamega County, Mr. Speaker, even if it encompasses a number of counties, Mr. Speaker, it is sad that in some of the offices in Kakamega, you can speak one local language and they can do an AGM meeting, Mr. Speaker, or a management meeting under one language, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we have seen Central Waterworks, North Rift, Central Waterworks, Mr. Speaker, Lake Victoria South, Mr. Speaker. All this Dana Athi, they have continued to become bastions of corruption, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Osotsi,
yes.
You know what to do for the Speaker to catch your eye. It's not about raising your hands. You've been in this house long enough to know how to raise a point of order. What's your point of order, Senator Osotsi?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for my neighbor, Senator Cherigei, to claim that Lake Victoria North Waterworks Company, they hold meetings in a particular language, when he knows that the chairperson of Lake Victoria North is actually not a Luya, he's a Teso? So is he in order to mislead this house that meetings at Lake Victoria North are done in a particular language?
Senator Osotsi, if I heard Senator Cherigei well, he stated that there is a possibility and that they may, if I heard him right. However, Senator Cherigei, could you substantiate that? Is exactly what you said?
Mr. Speaker, I might not be an expert in linguistics, but all Luya languages are similar, Mr. Speaker, unless there is difference of dialect. So what he has just confirmed, I didn't mention any particular tribe, Mr. Speaker, but he has confirmed that the Lake Victoria North Waterworks is, he has said that Teso, and you know, Teso and Luya language almost have similar at some point, but different dialects, Mr. Speaker. What I'm just saying is that it is irony, Mr. Speaker, that Lake Victoria North, part of it is Nandi. But what I'm saying is the human resource, Mr. Speaker, is part of Nandi. But when you go to the people who work, people who do the job in that Victoria North, Mr. Speaker, Lake Victoria North, you don't see the face of where the waterworks covers, and that is my concern. I wish we could even see the face of Kenya for that purposes, even if not the face of Lake Victoria North Waterworks. I have seen also there is what we call North Rift Waterworks that was established, Central Rift or North Rift Waterworks. My point is that most of these waterworks are bastion of corruption, Mr. Speaker, because they get a lot of billions of shillings to do some of those projects. For example, Mr. Speaker, in Nandi County, we are expecting to get a Keben water dam that will supply millions and millions of water to Kapsabet town and parts of both Nandi Hills constituency and Mgwen constituency, Mr. Speaker, or sub-counties. We are looking at Kipkaren Dam that will supply part of Kapseret constituency, Mosop sub-county, and also Chesume sub-county, Mr. Speaker. All these are managed between waterworks. What I'm saying, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't make sense to have so many waterworks if we can synchronize them so that it becomes easy, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, on the issue of public-private partnership, I think this is welcome, it's well-defined. I don't want many people that are saying this is eroding devolution, Mr. Speaker, or undermining devolution. It does not undermine. Because when you say contracting authority, it has given power to national government. And we know national government has its own waterworks that run, Mr. Speaker. When you look at the county government, by private, it has been given opportunity to do their own contracting authority, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of water licensing providers, water service providers, I think, Mr. Speaker, it is either the county or specific waterworks, Mr. Speaker, that can ensure that water service providers are given the authority to supply water. And we see water vendors, Mr. Speaker, especially Nairobi. Water vendors is a common. If you don't see water vendors in Nairobi, then there is something wrong, because it's part of Nairobi life, Mr. Speaker. Some of the towns, Mr. Speaker, like other towns, still have that problem. Even if you go to Mombasa City, Mr. Speaker, the fact that Mzima Springs, has not been able to give sufficient water to Nairobi City, to Mombasa City, Mr. Speaker. Similar, Kisumu, there are many cities. Even Eldoret is doing somehow better off. You see there was Sondu Dam that was supposed to be completed, Mr. Speaker. A number of cities do not have what you call water sustainability, Mr. Speaker. So when you have a way of providing water, is to ensure so that, Mr. Speaker, we know water vendors. Sometimes we don't know the quality of regulation of those water vendors or water service providers who ensures that we have clean and safe water. What are the mechanisms that have been put, Mr. Speaker? And therefore, what I'm providing on water service provider is to have partnership, Mr. Speaker, between the county government and the national government. It can become a shared function, an intergovernmental shared function, Mr. Speaker, because also everybody needs to access to water, Mr. Speaker. And I request that you protect me from Senator Muma, Mr. Speaker. Also, there is a national public water works shall not be transferable to a county government. I think because most of the water works, this is an open explanation, Mr. Speaker. Because if you are to discuss about Anaade today, it covers a number of counties. Same to Lake Victoria North, same to Central Works, Lake Victoria South, Mr. Speaker. Even Coast Water Works, Mr. Speaker. It covers a number of counties. So you cannot transfer to individual counties. It is a basic explanation, Mr. Speaker. But I agree with the initial proposal that we must find a way of synchronizing and ensuring that state corporations, Mr. Speaker, are limited. We should not be creating state corporations that take a lot of revenue, Mr. Speaker. You remember most of these state corporations, we have to pay for them when they are going concern on under losses, Mr. Speaker. And I'm surprised that most Kenyan leaders, including some of us, Mr. Speaker, have double speak. When the president was proposing that we need to offset some of the state corporations that were in red, Mr. Speaker, most of us were opposing. A number of people here who are proposing double standards are the same people who objected, even for example, KICC to be sold and a number of corporations, because most of them are coupling public resources, Mr. Speaker. When you come to KICC, where offices are, Mr. Speaker, the cockroaches are sharing office space with some of us, washrooms and many others. But if you privatize, Mr. Speaker, we might get better services. Even replacing a bulb in some of our offices might take our whole financial year, Mr. Speaker. So, even when you talk about leasing of sugar companies, and I'm happy the cabinet memo came out yesterday that no one is selling, but they are leasing sugar companies. Like Moroni, Chemelil, Zoia, among a number of sugar companies. Because, Mr. Speaker, I'm part of nucleus, especially from Chemaze, Tindred sub-county, Masab sub-county, Mr. Speaker. It's about leasing to turn around to profitability for the betterment of Kenyans. It is not for any other body, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the other point, on the issue of Section 72, clause number 7, evaluate, Mr. Speaker, and approve water and sewerage tariffs, bulk water tariffs, and approve the imposition of such tariffs in line with consumer protection standards. Mr. Speaker, we need also as a country to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the water tariffs or the prices of water should not be too expensive again. While we push for access of safe and clean water to each and every Kenyan, Mr. Speaker, we must in a way also ensure they are protected, Mr. Speaker. And that is why I was raising a question with these water vendors, water service providers. Do they get, I know they get license, but what is the public health department doing about it, Mr. Speaker? How do we ensure that the water that is being sold by water vendors or in our taps are safe for human and animal consumption, Mr. Speaker? Even for industrial use, when most of the companies and industrial discharge used water through industrial processes, is the issue of recycling of that water sufficient and clean enough and safe for Kenyans to use, Mr. Speaker? So, Speaker, sadly to say, Consumer Protection Unit and Competition Authority of Kenya are sleeping on the job. Because, Mr. Speaker, I saw the other day in Isli, people, I saw the issue of border milk, Mr. Speaker. I remember there was one company before Kenya Kwanza took over, Mr. Speaker, and has liberalized the market. They had been given only right to make powder milk, Mr. Speaker. But I was disappointed that why would the police and other agencies go and forcibly open doors, forcibly take some of the products, yet we have Competition Authority of Kenya. Yet we have Consumer Protection Unit, Mr. Speaker. Yet we have Kenya Bureau of Statistics. Yet we have Kenya Revenue Authority. Mr. Speaker, because when you discuss with a lot of businessmen, especially in Isli, Mr. Speaker, most of those border milk were cleared at the port of Mombasa. Why would you come and look for a trader, a small trader somewhere in Tala or somewhere in Machakos, Mr. Speaker, and come with commando style, Mr. Speaker? Yet there are agencies that you should have called upon. Like, for example, Competition Authority of Kenya, the Protection Standards, Consumer Protection Unit, Mr. Speaker, COFEC, Federation of Consumer in the country, Mr. Speaker. The process that we must do to protect our people, Mr. Speaker. Because we are assuming that we are reactionary. Because we don't know a number of people who have consumed that border milk by the time that soup is being done. So we must agree that they should be consumer, even including water, Mr. Speaker. Let the price of water be within the range, Mr. Speaker, within the range that can be afforded. Mr. Speaker, I know my time is fast spent, and colleagues want to say the contracting authority, Mr. Speaker, should be finally to say something on water tribunal. I think this is an obvious, Mr. Speaker, so that when there are disputes of licensing, disputes of water provision, Mr. Speaker, this is a straightforward matter. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge my colleagues who are resisting this amendment. There is nothing mischievous that it is in this law. It is black and white. It does not undermine devolution, Mr. Speaker. It seeks to enrich devolution, Mr. Speaker. It needs to ensure, Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy my chair is back in the House, Mr. Speaker. I had seen in one of these social handles, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindu Agnes wants to inform you. Do you want to be informed?
No, we can have I can get information at the lunch while we are having tea with her, so that I conclude. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, you know, I have a right to decline the information. I don't know why they walked up, Mr. Speaker. But I will listen to her in private. She better advises me in private, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on the water tribunal, this is a straightforward matter that we must look at it, Mr. Speaker. It is to resolve disputes that arise, Mr. Speaker. And as I was saying, it is good to see my chair back, Mr. Speaker. I saw him endorsing his party leader to run for the AU chairmanship in the coming election. So, and I can see he's very happy today, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, with all intents, I want to assure the country, Mr. Speaker, that this amendment is for the betterment of devolution. It does not in any way undermine devolution, Mr. Speaker. Let us give enrichment to this. We want to enrich all the laws. There is a catalogue of laws, Mr. Speaker, that at the end of the day are very critical in development, Mr. Speaker. I want to ask my colleagues from both sides, including my brother and senior counsel, who has been my, you know, incidentally, Mr. Speaker, you, the Speaker, and him have defended me before in trenches of the fight for justice in this country, that there is nothing sinister about this bill. Let us finish today, go for a division, allow every Kenyan to access clean and safe water in their taps or through water vendors or Ruto service. Mr. Speaker, with those very, very remarks, I support this bill and I thank you.
Honorable members, I have another communication from the chair on visiting students from Kenyatta University, Homa Bay Students Association, Homa Bay County. Honorable Senators, I would like to acknowledge the presence in the public gallery this afternoon visiting students from Kenyatta University, Homa Bay Students Association. The group comprises 17 students who are in the Senate for a one-day academic exposition. In our usual tradition of receiving and welcoming visitors to Parliament, I extend a warm welcome to them, and on behalf of the Senate and on my own behalf, wish them a faithful visit. I thank them. In absentia, yes. Senator Mogeni Eric Okongwa.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for according me an opportunity to also make my contribution to the amendments that are on the floor. The Water Amendment Bill 2023. Mr. Speaker.
Senator Murango, order, honorable members. Senator Murango, Senator Miraj, consult in silence.
Mr. Speaker, Senator Murango is confusing Senator Gloria on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, as senators, our main mandate under Article 96 of the Constitution is to defend devolution. That's why the people of the Republic of Kenya created a bicameral house, so that senators principally are supposed to be defenders of devolution. So every time we consider a bill as senators, our first concern is whether that bill is clawing back on devolution or it is strengthening devolution, Mr. Speaker. The second point, Mr. Speaker, is for us to ensure that we don't support a law that takes away devolved functions. So, Mr. Speaker, if we start from the basics, the responsibility for water services, provision of water, is a function of our devolved units. That's in the Constitution. So if we want to transfer that function to the national government, we begin by amending the Constitution first. If we don't, Mr. Speaker, we'll be enacting a law that is clearly unconstitutional. And we should take our work seriously, Mr. Speaker. Legislation is not a joke, Mr. Speaker. In other jurisdictions, differences between two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate, can lead to dissolution of the entire House. It has happened 7 times in Australia, and therefore we should not shy off as senators from telling off our colleagues from the other House that the amendments they are trying to push through are unconstitutional. And let's not joke with issues of water. Mr. Speaker, water has caused war, even in this part of the world, even in Kenya here. The conflicts we have in Eastern is triggered by fight for water. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Far East, the conflict between Israel and its neighbors is related to water over River Jordan. Mr. Speaker, if you go to the Nile Basin, we have had the Nile Treaty Agreement, I think for over 70 years, since 1959, Mr. Speaker. And the neighboring countries, I think 9 of them, that enjoy that water of Nile Basin, have respected that Nile Basin Treaty. Because if you don't follow it, Mr. Speaker, it can trigger war. Not just between Egypt and Sudan, but even among the other 9 countries along the Nile Basin. So, Mr. Speaker, anytime we get a bill like this that wants to deny counties their constitutional mandate, we should proceed cautiously. And we should also have a moment of self-reflection. I wish Senator Seragei was here. It should not be our business, Mr. Speaker, that every time we sit as parliamentarians, we pass bad laws, and then we throw up our hands and say, courts will deal with it. Even the courts will get tired. we will also become a collective shame to the nation, Mr. Speaker. We should be candid, Mr. Speaker, and say if a law is unconstitutional, let us be bold and say it's unconstitutional. Period. So that we win the respect of Kenyans. It cannot be, Mr. Speaker, that we were elected 67 of us and we have no brains to think. Senator Galwale is a very senior senator. He has done, I think, 5 terms as an elected member of parliament. So he should be able to enact laws that are in conformity with the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya. And when you read the proposed amendments, clearly, as a lawyer, I can see that they are unconstitutional. Because we want to transfer functions that are reserved for county governments to the national government. I mean, we are supposed to be a country that is strengthening devolution, not clawing back. Not clawing back. And we are, I mean, if we can't protect counties, then what will be our business as senators? It seems we have no business. And I can tell you, when the current regime took power, we got a memorandum from the head of state written to us. And he said in black and white that he expects members of parliament, National Assembly, and the Senate to discharge their functions independently. So you have no cause for fear. We must discharge our functions independently in accordance with the Constitution, because we swore to protect the Constitution. That is it. So if you transfer all these issues dealing with bulk water works to those regional bodies, what will counties be doing, Mr. Speaker? And there are several issues that should be of concern to us other than fighting as to who should do what. The Constitution is very clear. We are one country with one national government and with 47 county governments. So we should cooperate, not to have these fights of we want to have more power than the other arm the other level of government. That should not be our concern. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to be on record that on behalf of the people of Nyamira, I'll be opposing, and I stand here to oppose this proposed amendment, especially where it's clawing back on functions that have clearly been reserved by the Constitution of Kenya 2010 for county governments. Even reading the creation of a tribunal as proposed in this bill, there is no participation of our county governments. We are giving that power to Judicial Service Commission to appoint advocates, to appoint engineers, without any involvement of our county governments. That's not the way to go. That's not the way to go, Mr. Speaker. And at times I sit back and wonder, if we don't want devolution, why can't we be bold? Come up with a referendum. We do away with devolution. Then we transfer every service, every function to the national government. But if we take away all these functions from our governors, and the governors have issues, we know. If we take away all these functions, what will be the functions of governors? Is it just to send money to them, they get salaries and big vehicles? I mean, Mr. Speaker, I expect if I go to Nyamira, I want to ask my governor questions about provision of water to my people. If I go to my ward where I was born and bred up, where Mzege Kara, so to talk to Mama Nyamokami, to get married to. I want those people to know that their senator is fighting for them to get piped water, so that they can lead better lives than my mother Nyamokami used to go to the river to draw water. I don't want to pose those questions to the president in State House. I want to pose those questions to my governor. And if we allow this amendment, we'll be giving them a lame excuse. They'll be saying, this is not my function. When I was doing oversight, Mr. Speaker, over Christmas, I visited several areas where our governors had drilled balls, but which are not able to supply water to the citizens. Kalwala, if you travel with me to Nyangena in Bosamaro Ward, go to Riakimai in Bosamaro Ward, go to Enchoro in Bosamaro Ward. Governors have drilled balls, Mr. Speaker, but they have not connected water to the citizens. Those are the issues we should be occupying our minds here. Not to tell them that we want these services to be taken away from them. No, Mr. Speaker. So I want to urge my colleagues from the other side to look at this law very, very objectively. And we discharge our functions as men and women who have taken oath to defend devolution. That's what we should be doing. Whether you come from the county of Baringo, whether you come from the county of Tana River, whether you come from the county of Kakamega, your people need water. That is the basic. In terms of what we should be discussing, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, other countries have made great strides on storing water. When I was chair of Law Society, I attended the International Bar Association meeting in Madrid, 2008, Mr. Speaker. And you know, as part of the tour, the legal body of Spain took us to a site where water is stored. And they said that's a national security. What do you call it? A national security protected area. Because they value issues of water storage as a serious matter of national security. Because you must have water stored for your people. Here, Madam Speaker, we had long rains. We had something we called El Nino some few months ago. Did we store any water? None. We did not store water. And that's what the government should be concerned now. Huh? You go to Israel, they recycle water. You know, the water that you use in a toilet in Tel Aviv is recycled. Huh? That's what we should be doing, Mr. Speaker. So that as a country, we know that Kenya is a water scarce country. We don't have enough water as a country. It's a water scarce country. Let's store more water. Let's have technology that can assist us recycle water. And then we build the capacity of our counties to supply water to our people, connect sewer. Senator Kalwale, in Nyamira we don't have sewer connection. In the entire town, there is no sewer connection in Nyamira town and the entire Nyamira county. Those are the concerns I have for my people of Nyamira. And I want that capacity to be enhanced for my governor, for my CEC, my chief officers, so that we can feel proud as a people that we have connected sewer to our people and we have connected clean water to our people. So, Speaker, if you talk to a tourist coming to Kenya, they will tell you if they come from Britain, they drink tap water. They open the taps, drink the water. You speak to a tourist from Netherlands, they will tell you, in our country, we drink tap water. Can you advise your own son or daughter to drink tap water in Kenya? You cannot. And that has been a function of national government, Mr. Speaker. So we now want our counties to compete among themselves so that tomorrow we can say we have Governor Kalwale in Kakamega who has managed to supply the people of Wingo with clean tap water. Then Nyamira can benchmark, Kisumu can benchmark. That's the progress we should be making, Mr. Speaker. So I conclude by urging my colleague senators to reject this bill. The mischief is very clear, is to claw back on devolution, is to transfer functions that are reserved for county governments to the national government, contrary to the clear provisions of the Constitution, which is unconstitutional. So on that basis alone, we should not allow this bill to see the light of the day. With those many remarks, Mr. Speaker, I oppose this bill.
Senator Boni Halwale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for purposes of record and for purposes of debate and for purposes of being understood very well, I am contributing to this bill on two limbs. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is that I am defending the Lake Victoria North Water Board, how it affects the county of Kakamega. Number two, on this bill, I want to urge colleagues to realize that there is no law in this country for the opposition. There is no law for the party in government. Having said those two things, I have two confessions to make. The first confession to make is that when we were in Turkana legislating on the health laws, we all remember how protracted debate was. And I clearly told plenary that I was seeing the danger of the laws upon being signed in law being challenged in court. When I went to State House, when the president was signing these laws into, these bills into law, I met the leader of the majority, Honorable Shungwa. And he told me, I saw you speaking in Turkana, and I was asking myself, is that the chief whip of the government or is he the chief whip of the opposition? So I looked at the young legislator and I knew with time he will understand that there are no laws for the opposition, there are no laws for the party in government. I therefore urge colleagues, please, so that again you don't find yourselves with the egg on the face, don't pass this bill in the current format, because it's going to be challenged in court and it is going to, we will lose. That's it. It is written in English and we all understand. The second confession I want to make is that Honorable Mugeni, we have come a very long way with him. And we have agreed on everything. The first time I came in contact with him was when many years ago, over 20 years ago, he was the chairman of the Law Society of Kenya. And at that time, Mr. Speaker, Omkeni presided over a function where LSK was awarding me accolades for the work that I was doing in this assembly. That standard has remained. That standard will continue. The only time we disagreed with Senator Mugeni was yesterday when he shocked me that we can use Article 247 to create a parallel police force for Parliament. Up to now, I don't understand. I'm still looking for him when he's free. He'll educate me. Having said that, why do I oppose this bill? It is in English. Look at 119, the creation of the tribunal. Where does the county government or county governments come in? It's not there. It's nowhere. They are creating a tribunal in this law where county governments not only fail to be mentioned, but even by implication, you don't see how the prime movers of water which is fully devolved will participate in this very critical tribunal. There is room for us to change this. If you change this, it doesn't mean you are unpatriotic. It doesn't mean you are against the government. It means you are doing good legislation. That's what it means. Upon moving this motion, if you go, we are told that one reason why we are amending the Water Act is because the powers and functions of the Water Storage Authority are facing proposed amendment. The principle of lawmaking is that you change a law because you want to cure something. So when we want to amend the powers and functions of the Water Storage Authority, what is it that we are curing? Unless it is mischief. Further, Section 69, which is proposed for amendment, it is for handover of completed works. What is there in the current law that makes it difficult for county governments to receive completed works that is forcing us to amend Section 69? There's nothing. Mr. Speaker, Section 72, which is proposed for amendment, is you want to amend the powers and functions of the regulatory board. What offense has the current regulatory board, with its function in the current format, visited the supply, the storage, the development of water in this country? Nothing. Mr. Speaker, Section 75 in this amendment is due for proposed amendments, and it is about the register of licensed water services providers. We have to reflect and retrospect on these things. Kenya is for all of us. Every time, my younger sister, Muma, every time I speak in Kakamega, I look at a huge crowd of humanity and I see 70% of the people that I'm addressing are younger than me. So how can I lie to them? How would I lie to them? Is tantamount to you as a mother, Beatrice, lying to your own children. It's not possible. So let us retrospect. It's not a question of counting numbers here. Let us say this is bad, let us improve it, and life goes on. We shall all be happy. When the judges, who, by the way, are your friends behind the tent, they sit with us at the club and they say, hey, you guys, what's wrong with you? How come you passed this legislation? We want to speak to this and strongly say we can do a better job. Finally, Section 100 is undergoing proposed amendment. And Section 100, Madam and Mr. Speaker, sir, is about supply of bulk water. Supply of bulk water is so characteristic of the area the bulk water is being taken to that you do not need any level of education to know that a supply of bulk water in Machakos is unique. And like all other semi-arid areas and arid areas, supply of bulk water is unique. Compared to places like Kericho, places like Meru, places like Kakamega, where there's plenty of rain, places like Kisii, where there's plenty of rain, supply of bulk water to us is different from the arid areas. You don't talk about water ponds in Kakamega and Kisii and Meru, but that is their principal concern. All the more reason why management should be left to counties, because counties are the ones which are the custodians. Counties, Chair, I'm waiting for the exchange before I continue. Madam Chair, welcome to the chair.
Thank you. Honorable Halwale, do you wish to be informed?
Yes, information from young people can be extremely life-saving. So let her inform me.
Thank you, Senator Halwale. And with all due respect, I know that you're my senior, and but you know, sometimes you can learn from us young people. I just want to inform you that as much as you want to say that matters supply, demand, and the interest of the economy should be left to the county governments alone, Madam Speaker, I think that is a bit misleading, because national government also creates policies that push our economy, to grow our economy. Madam Speaker, I want to challenge anyone at the floor of the House right now to Google the dollar rate, Madam Speaker, right now. From 160 something right now, Madam Speaker. We are at 140, and that is because of policies that originated from the national government.
Order, Senator Gloria. Can you inform on what Senator Halwale spoke on? It's not an opportunity for you to make a statement, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am informing him because he said that matters, supply, demand, and the growth of an economy should be left to county governments. And I'm trying to inform him that the same cannot be ignored when national policies influence the economy of county governments. That is what I'm informed. And by highlighting the dollar rate at this moment now, it is because of a policy from national government that the dollar is now trading at 140. Madam, I challenge anyone to Google. We are at 140 heading to 120, Madam Speaker. That is a Kenya Kwanza government policy, Madam Speaker. That is the point of information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker, I told you that a young person will always tell you something futuristic. We are all happy that the dollar exchange rate is coming down. But for information, Senator Gloria, for your information, without production in the county, you cannot influence the economy positively for you to be able to attract dollars into the country. Dollars don't just come here. You have to export something. You have to sell something outside Kenya. So thank you very much for the information. And take no offense. If we make our counties efficient, the production will be higher. The exchange rate of the dollar, we wanted to drop below 117, where we found when we took over government. And that is the bigger picture, and we are going there. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, let us reflect on why devolution. Devolution was intended to take services, amongst other things, close to the people. Now, if you remove the service of water and take it back to the national government, as this bill is trying to attempt, if you remove or make it difficult for access to affordable health, as I warned in Turkana that day, then you are saying devolution is not necessary. Because without devolution, taking charge of water, without devolution, taking charge of access to affordable health, then devolution would be meaningless. Senator Gloria, I invite you, you are a young lady of means. In fact, the nature of your background is that what I'm telling you might not be nothing new. I invite you to go to Belgium. Belgium, one of the most successful cases of devolution in the world. You'll find that the government of Wayne actually lends money to the federal government. Devolution has become so successful that on-source revenue in Wayne is more than the revenue at the federal government. So when you are dealing with a rich county like Kakamega, like Nairobi, the mineral-rich counties like Taita Taveta, if you empower those counties sufficiently to unlock those economies, Kakamega, Taita Taveta, Nairobi, Mombasa will actually be giving or loaning out money to the national government. That's where we want the devolution to take this country. We want devolution to be so successful that the jobs that are available in the water sector that this bill intends to kill should not be sought for in Nairobi. People who have trained in education in our universities and they come from Bungoma, they should be able to access the jobs they will have to be forced to come and do in Nairobi. When you centralize, they should be able to do those jobs from Bungoma. We must make devolution work, even if we don't want to be governors of the future. We must make devolution successful, even when we know that we have no intention of settling in our home counties. We want devolution to be so successful that any service you want can come on the spot. I went through a very embarrassing situation whereby I had lost my boy who had taken care of for a period of over 10 years. And we had to wait for 2 weeks for the national government to come to Kakamega. But if devolution is completely successful, then you wouldn't be waiting for specialists to come from Kakamega. You would sort out the issues the following day. If that is not patriotism, what is? Who told you, Madam Chair, that patriotism means supporting a political party? Patriotism is about supporting and advancing the national agenda, because the national agenda shall never change. Because political parties can change.
What's your point of order, Senator Ruaba?
Why is Senator very unhappy?
Madam Speaker, we are debating on the water bill. I don't think it is in order. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, we are debating on the water bill, and I don't think it is in order that Senator Halwale.
Cite the standing order.
Yeah. I don't think it's in order that he's digressing.
Senator.
Madam Speaker, thank you, Madam Speaker, for protecting me. Senator Gloria, I beg you.
Order, the other senator.
Senator Gloria, I beg you. When you are elected, either the special way or through the elections that the other people went through, you become a big person in Nairobi, whose word attracts attention. And the biggest threat, let me tell you, Senator, is something that was spoken to by the greatest senator in the history of the Congress of the United States. His name was Senator William Fulbright. Go and read about the contribution of Senator William Fulbright. He said, once we get elected, we get something called the arrogance of power. The arrogance of power. Once you have the arrogance of power, you forget, Senator Gloria, once one has the arrogance of power, they forget the woman in Kisii who queued for 6 hours to vote for you as senator, even when they have never seen you, even when they will never see you. Let us raise the game. Let us make good laws that will make Kenya successful. I oppose this bill.
Senator Kajwang. Order, can the senator be heard in silence, please?
Madam Speaker, just like the famous inciter of bulls, Senator Boni Khalwale has said, I also rise to oppose this amendment. Madam Speaker, our job here as a Senate is to defend and protect devolution. The net effect of this amendment is to dilute devolution and to transfer functions and powers that have been assigned to county governments to national government institutions. Madam Speaker, I've gone through this amendment bill and I've got a very clear conscience in opposing it. I have further received instructions, Madam Speaker, from the caucus of county executive committee members of water in Kenya. And they have said that they held their meetings and they decided that this bill, they are going to lobby their respective senators so that we defeat it on the floor of this House. And Madam Speaker, this caucus brings together CECs from all the 47 counties, irrespective of how they voted, irrespective of who their political hero is. They have all in unison said that this bill is going to take away the little powers and the little space that county governments and county water service providers have.
Order, Madam Commissioner. Senator Miraj, can you consult in low tones, please?
And Madam Speaker, the caucus members include the CEC water from Bomet, has said oppose. The CEC member for water from Mombasa, where Senator Miraj allegedly comes from, has said oppose. So I hope that they are going to, including Kisii, where Senator Oroba allegedly comes from, has said oppose.
Continue, Senator.
Madam Speaker.
Order, Senator Gloria.
And I think, Madam Speaker, would have really benefited from the report of the standing committee on this particular amendment, because the reports
Senator
of
Uroba,
committees.
What is your point of order?
Madam Speaker, statement of fact. I don't allegedly come from Kisii County. I come from Kisii County. You must apologize and withdraw. What are you trying to tell the electorate out there? Apologize and withdraw.
Senator Uroba, allegedly means he does not know.
Madam Speaker, I have no idea where she comes from, so there is nothing for me to apologize over. And I think that if someone went to a good school, the word alleged, is self-explanatory. Madam Speaker, allow me to go to the content of this amendment
Order,
bill.
Senator Uroba, please. Please.
If you look at...
Order, Senator Uroba. Order, Senator Uroba.
I have nothing to withdraw.
Senator Uroba,
I don't know where you come from.
I will not ask you again, please.
Madam Speaker, we are dealing with a very important matter that we are not going to allow ourselves to be diverted by certain sideshows that have become customary in this House. The objective of this bill has been touted as to provide for public-private partnership arrangements and connected purposes. Madam Speaker, if you look at clause 3 of this amendment, it confers additional powers to the National Water Harvesting and Storage Authority, a national government entity. When it provides additional powers to that entity, it means that it is taking it away from another level of government, which in this case is a county government. If you look at clause 4 of this amendment, it confers additional functions to the waterworks development agencies at the expense of water service providers, which are entities owned by county governments.
Madam Speaker, no sane senator can stand here and say that there is nothing wrong with this amendment that seeks to weaken water service providers, which are county corporations, by allocating those powers to waterworks development agencies, which are controlled by a cabinet secretary sitting in Nairobi. Madam Speaker, if you go further, clause 5 of this amendment talks of licensing of waterworks development agencies.
Senator Sifuna.
Apologies, Senator. Mr. Speaker, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 121 1A and 121 1C, where a senator unnecessarily interrupts proceedings or consults in a disruptive manner. Madam Speaker, I am seated right behind Senator Kajwang, but I am unable to follow debate because of the disruptions that Senator Gloria is causing to this particular debate. If she is unwilling to continue listening to her colleagues, we listened to her. She also opposed this bill, and we also stamped our feet for her. She should have the courtesy to also listen to other senators when they are contributing. So, Madam Speaker, in order for us to also share in the wisdom of Senator Kajwang that is flowing in the same manner that the wisdom from Kakamega was flowing, some of us are taking notes. If you are disinterested in this debate, Madam Speaker, let her leave the chamber. I thank you.
Senator Orwoba, I wish to caution you under Standing Order 121-2A that if you cause any further disruption of the proceedings, I shall actually ask you to exit the chamber for the remainder of the day. Can we all comply?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was going clause by clause just to demonstrate that this is an illegality. We are trying to rewrite the Constitution. We are trying to rewrite the 4th schedule of the Constitution through this mischievous amendment. Madam Speaker, clause 7 confers additional functions to the Water Services Regulatory Board, another entity controlled by the national government, and clause 10 of this amendment talks about supply of bulk water in counties and introduces waterworks development agencies. Previously, the preserve and domain of the WSPs that are controlled by county governments. Madam Speaker, the Council of Governors made their submissions, and I've had the opportunity to look at the submissions of the Council of Governors. Why do we want to bring waterworks development agencies to do the last miles instead of facilitating water service providers to do that? Because that is their constitutional duty. And they have argued that because of the economies of scale that the waterworks development agencies have, they are going to run water service providers out of business. Madam Speaker, if you look at the Constitution and how it is structured, we have failed this nation as a house because since the advent of devolution, there are two sectors where we have not pushed for full transfer of functions. One is in the road sector, the other one is in the water sector. And Madam Speaker, I do recall when the Committee on Agriculture, chaired by the very distinguished Senator Murango, who has approached the chair, held a meeting to plan on its objectives and strategies for that particular session. Madam Speaker, the CS for Water, the Honorable Alice Wahome, appeared before the Agriculture Committee in Mombasa. And she came along with the mandarins in the water sector. And we put it to them that they've been the obstacle, they've been the hindrance, they've been the stumbling block to reforms in the water sector. Why? Because they want to continue controlling big budgets in Nairobi. Madam Speaker, what is the business of national government officials going to counties to drill boreholes instead of providing that water to that money to governors to drill the boreholes? Some of them are using it for political bonga points or for political persuasion. They come to launch a borehole, then they tell you that you need to support the government of the day because they are the ones who drilled that borehole. At what point do you tell that the taxes that sunk that borehole came from one side of the country and not from all Kenyans? Madam Speaker, as a house, we must prioritize the pieces of legislation that have been stuck in the past constitutional dispensation And I'm very happy that the Devolution Committee, in a report to this House, has already highlighted the bills that need to be, or the acts of parliament that need to be amended. And Madam Speaker, I hope that that Devolution Committee, which you ably sit in, has identified the Water Act as one of those pieces of legislation that are still stuck in the past, that still confer too much advantage, monetary advantage, patronage to the national government. Madam Speaker, if we want to ensure that we raise water coverage in our counties, which is at a very low point, and I usually tell people in my county that it is not okay to be bathing
Senator
in the lake.
Montet, Senator Miraj and Senator Korir, please, tafadhali.
Madam Speaker, I tell my people it is not okay to be bathing in the lake or to be bathing in rivers. It is not okay to be washing utensils and washing clothes in lakes and rivers. In fact, even cattle should not be drinking from lakes and rivers because they end up getting all sorts of infections, and many cases we have conflict with crocodiles and hippos and all sorts of animals. An organized government and a civilized society should ensure that water is provided to the nearest point where citizens need it. And the nearest point, most of the times, is a tap in someone's house. That is what civilization looks like. We cannot glorify poverty and call it culture. That when you see my people bathing in Lake Victoria, and you come and you find it's like a nudist colony because people are used to bathing that way, it cannot be normal, it cannot be okay. The government should provide water to the last mile, to the door of that woman, to the door of that pastoralist, so that his cattle can have water for their sustenance. For us to do this, we must strengthen WSPs, water service providers. We should not weaken them the way this amendment tries to weaken them. And Madam Speaker, we must also explore ways through which water service providers, those that are too small to make sense, can merge with neighboring water service providers. And again, one piece of legislation that we have been slow in enacting is a legal framework to anchor in law the regional economic blocks. Because, Madam Speaker, I believe that some water service providers could coalesce around regional economic blocks so that they can become bigger, so that they can take advantage of those economies of scale, and they'll be able to shed off some of those management issues that keep cropping up whenever they appear before the Osotsi committee. Madam Speaker, finally, Nairobi Water was at some point in our lifetime an exemplary organization which was a subject of case studies. Madam Speaker, when I was doing my master's in public policy, one of the case studies that you had to memorize was a case study on Nairobi Water and Sewage Corporation and how they reduced non-revenue water. Madam Speaker, I wonder what happened. The same Nairobi Water today is barely solvent. The same Nairobi Water today has become an employment bureau for cronies of those people who are in power. Madam Speaker, water service provision is possible to be delivered to the quality standards that the Constitution envisages. The problem is over-politicization, and the problem is that we want to dominate and we want to control resources. Madam Speaker, I want to dissuade the sponsor of this bill, and I want to encourage my colleagues in this House that this bill kills devolution. This bill takes power from counties to the national government, and if our job under Article 96 is to defend and protect the interests of counties and their governments, then this is a bill that we must unanimously shoot down. Madam Speaker, I reject and I shall oppose this amendment bill.
Honorable Senators, I wish to request us to interrupt the debate for momentarily and go back to order number 5. We have a few important, an important paper to be tabled by the majority leader. Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of this Senate today, Tuesday, 15th February 2024. These are: 1, the 2024 Budget Policy Statement; 2, the 2024 medium-term revenue strategy and for financial years 2024-2025 to 2026-2027. 3. Draft Division of Revenue Bill for 2024. 4. Draft County Allocation Revenue Bill 2024 and Draft County Government's Additional Allocations Bill 2024 and the Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy 2024. I thank you and I lay.
Honorable Senators, I have a communication on the consideration of the Budget Policy Statement 2024 by the Senate. Honorable Senators, as you may have noted, the Senate Majority Leader has tabled the following documents: the Budget Policy Statement for the financial year 2024-2025, the Medium-Term Revenue Strategy for financial years 2025 to 2026-2027, the Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy 2024, the Draft Division of Revenue Bill 2024, the Draft County Allocation of Revenue Bill 2024, and the Draft County Government's Additional Allocations Bill 2024. Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order number 186 of the Senate requires the National Treasury to prepare and submit the budget policy statement to Parliament by the 15th February each year. Honorable Senators, the budget policy statement is an important financial instrument as it sets out the broad strategic priorities and policy goals that will guide the national government an assessment of the current state of economy and the financial outlook over the medium term, including macroeconomics forecasts, the financial outlook with respect to government revenues, expenditures, and borrowing for the next financial year and over the medium term, the proposed expenditure limits for the national government, including those of Parliament and the judiciary, and indicative transfers to county governments, the fiscal responsibility principles and financial objectives over the medium term, including limits of total annual debt, and 5, the proposed division of revenue, including proposed additional allocations, if any. This budget policy statement details the criteria used to allocate or apportion the available public resources among the 2 levels of government and the various programs and projects. Honorable Senators, Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act provides as follows, and I quote, "Parliament shall not later than 14 days after the budget policy statement is submitted to Parliament table and discuss a report containing its recommendations and pass a resolution to adopt it with or without amendments." Further, Standing Order 186.4 states that, and I quote, "Upon being laid before the Senate, the budget policy statement shall be committed to each standing committee to consider and submit its recommendations to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget within 7 days. Pursuant to Standing Order 186.5, the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget shall within 12 days following the tabling of the budget policy statement consider the budget policy statement and the recommendations received under paragraph 4 and table the report for consideration in accordance with Section 25(7) of the Public Finance Management Act. Appreciating the importance of the budget policy statement and the above timelines, I direct that the budget policy statement be considered by all standing committees, each concentrating on its mandate, highlighting any policy and financial recommendations thereof. These recommendations must be forwarded to the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget on or before Thursday, 22nd February 2024. In order to assist the standing committees to unpackage the contents of the budget policy statement, the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget has organized a breakfast meeting for all senators on Tuesday, 20th February 2024 at 7:30 a.m. at a venue to be communicated. The Standing Committee on Finance and Budget will be required to consider the recommendations from the other standing committees, as well as consult the institutions referred to under Standing Order 186-6 in finalizing its report on the budget policy statement. The Standing Committee will be required to table its report on or before Wednesday, 28 February 2024, for the Senate to consider and make a determination on the report by Thursday, 29th February 2024. Honorable Senators, in a nutshell, it means that any proposal that Senators have regarding the budget policy statement, division of revenue bill, the county allocation of revenue bill, the county government's additional allocations bill 2024, and the financing structure thereof, among other recommendations, should be canvassed and forwarded to the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury for consideration when finalizing the budget for the Treasury for the relevant financial year. This is a requirement pursuant to Section 25(8) of the Public Finance Management Act and Standing Order 186-9 of the Senate. In conclusion, I urge all to prioritize the scrutiny of the budget policy statement, taking into account consideration of our most important function, which is safeguarding devolution. I thank you. Honorable Senators, there's one more statement by majority under order number 7. Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to make a statement on behalf of the Majority Leader on the business of the Senate for the week commencing Tuesday, 20th February 2024, pursuant to Standing Order number 57-1. Madam Speaker, pursuant to this standing order, I hereby present the Senate the business for the week commencing Tuesday 20th, and before I proceed with the statement, allow me to take this opportunity to welcome honorable senators back from the long recess. I trust that you have had time to rest and have had an opportunity to reconnect with your constituents, family, and friends. So far, a total of 66 Senate bills have been published. Out of these, 5 bills have been enacted into law, while 8 have been concluded and referred to the National Assembly for consideration but are yet to be concluded. 44 bills are pending conclusion at the various Senate stages, out of which 9 are National Assembly bills, while 35 are Senate bills. Of these 44 bills, 33 are at the second stage reading and 11 are at the Committee of the Whole. A further 9 Senate bills are undergoing concurrence pursuant to Article 110 of the Constitution, and 5 bills have been denied concurrence. 2 bills were negatived at the second reading stage, and 2 bills were withdrawn by the respective movers. Madam Speaker, a total of 45 petitions have been presented to the Senate and subsequently referred to various standing committees for consideration. Of these, 24 have been considered by the respective standing committees, while 21 are pending conclusion. This, with respect to statements, a total of 547 have been sought under Standing Order 53-1 and committed to the relevant standing committees. And out of this, 293 are pending conclusion by the respective committees. With regard to motions, a total of 2 have been filled by senators and will be scheduled in coming days. Madam Speaker, This is maybe a point worth noting. Parliamentary Service Commission should reflect on the volume of work in the hands of committees. 547 statements are being processed. The Senate is really at work. At the meeting held on Tuesday, 13th February, the Senate Business Committee approved the first set of questions to appear in the order paper for Wednesday, 21st February 2024 during the morning sitting. The summary of the questions and cabinet secretaries to appear on that day are as follows. Members note that question 1 is by Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel, MP, to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration on the intercommunal clashes that occurred in Sondu town during the demonstrations in June and July 2023. 2 is question number 2 by Senator Mwenda Kataya Mofaya, MP, to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration on the non-operationalization of Chiagariga sub-county in Tharaka Nithi County. Question 3 is by Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel, MP, to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development on the theft of cane at way bridges while in transit to sugar factories. Question number 4 is by Professor Tom Ojienda, Senior Counsel, MP, to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development on the appointment and dismissal of directors and managing directors, chief executive officers in state-owned sugar companies in Kenya. Question 5 is by Senator James Murango, MP, to the Cabinet Secretary for Water, Sanitation and Irrigation on the water projects budgeted for by the national government in Kirinyaga County in the financial year 2023-2024. Madam Speaker, as senators will recall, during the morning sitting of the Senate on Wednesday, 14th February 2024, the report of the National Dialogue Committee was tabled and a notice of motion for adoption was given. This motion will be coming up for debate in the coming week. Additionally, today, the Senate will receive the budget policy statement, the draft division of revenue bill, the draft county allocation of revenue bill, and the county government's additional allocations bill. The Senate Business Committee will schedule these financial instruments for consideration upon tabling of the reports by the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget. From the aforesaid, the Senate begins the third session with an already full plate. I must therefore say that as we commence this session, we cannot overlook the fact that the second session was marred by a recurring issue of lack of quorum and insufficient numbers for voting on legislative business, which largely impeded our progress in the consideration and passage of legislative business. The third session, Madam Speaker, presents us with a good opportunity to advance the legislative business before the Senate. For this season, I urge all of us to be present and engaged in the chamber for debates and voting process. I also implore all committees to expeditiously consider business before them and table reports in a timely manner pursuant to the respective standing orders. Madam Speaker, finally, on Tuesday, the 20th February 2024, the Senate Business Committee will consider and approve the business of this week. I do thank you and hereby lay this statement on the table of the Senate on behalf of Senator Aaron Cheruyot, EGH MP, Senate Majority Leader. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I wish to invoke my powers under Standing Order number 45-2 on the sequence of proceedings and wish to suspend the debate on the water bill to the next sitting, where Senator Morango, you will be the first person to speak and call us to address order number 8. Is that majority? Proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to move motion number 8, being consideration of the draft Senate calendar for the third.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the draft Senate calendar for the third session of the 13th Parliament.
Majority.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry for the hiccup. I rise to move motion number 8, being consideration of the draft Senate calendar for the third session of the 13th Parliament. That pursuant to Standing Order number 32-1, the Senate approves the calendar for regular sittings for the third session of the 13th Parliament, February to December 2024, that was laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 14th, 2024. Madam Speaker, we are just notifying this for general information pursuant to Standing Order number 32 of the Senate Standing Orders. And Madam Speaker, this being a procedural motion, the dates are on your order paper and they are contained in a schedule which shows that the first session, this third session, started on 13th of February. It will continue as part 1 to 28th of March. Thereafter, we will go on a brief recess before we embark on part 2 that will run between 16th of April to 30th of May. Thereafter, we'll go for a recess to come back and restart the third part of the third session on the 25th of June, which will end on the 8th of August, and again we will break for a recess. Coming from which we will embark on the fourth part of the third session, and this will start on 30th of September to 17th of October. Again, we'll have a brief break, and upon coming back, we will embark on the last and final part 5 of the third session, which will last from 5th to 5th of November and December. Madam Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Osoti, the distinguished senator from Vihiga, to second this motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, as you're aware, this particular motion is very important for this House because we cannot effectively transact our business in this House without having a clear calendar as to how we are going to meet and the times and the dates. Madam Speaker, this is very important. You realize that before the new constitution, Parliament did not have the powers to decide on its calendar. But this is one of the best things that have happened as a result of the new constitution, that we are able to discuss and agree on our calendar. Madam Speaker, I don't want to belabor on this matter. I want to second this motion and ask all our colleagues to approve this motion so that we are very sure of the dates when we'll go for recess and when we'll be in session. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Have you seconded it? Senator Osotsi, please second the motion.
Madam Speaker, I said it, but for a record time, I want to second this motion.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 32.1, the Senate approves the calendar regular sessions for the third session of the 13th Parliament, February to December 2024, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 14th February 2024. Senator Mungatana?
Madam Speaker, I want to thank you.
For people who had logged in, just a moment, people who had logged in and do not wish to speak on this, please log out, so that we know who wants to speak to this. Senator Mungatana.
Yes, Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a word just very briefly on this motion. Madam Speaker, this may seem to be a very minute motion, even a procedural motion, but Madam Speaker, this is in fact a constitutional motion, Madam Speaker. And this motion, Madam Speaker, celebrates the victories that were recorded from the new Constitution of 2010. Madam Speaker, we must celebrate for record and to remind the nation where we came from, Madam Speaker. In those days, Madam Speaker, Parliament was under the total shackles of the executive, Madam Speaker. And every time the head of executive, the president, felt like Parliament is being too hot, he would exercise the prerogative of dissolution of Parliament. And Madam Speaker, we used to be sent home when things are not working for the president. So Madam Speaker, for the young generation that is coming up, we must remind them that we have cause to celebrate for us as a Parliament, as a Senate now, that we are able to set our own timetable, Madam Speaker. Decide when we come, decide when we go, and decide how we proceed in the business of this House. Madam Speaker, you know, we must celebrate these things because, like in the Bible, we remind ourselves every Sunday, and those of us who are given to the Word of God every day, we have to read and remind ourselves of the victories that we came from and the history, Madam Speaker, so that we can continue in the path of independence of this House. Madam Speaker, I have observed today the debate, and I have followed with a lot of satisfaction, Madam Speaker, what has transpired in this House. Madam Speaker, this is the spirit of Parliament, the spirit of independence, the spirit of our people in Kenya that is admired all over East Africa. And this is what makes us as Kenya that other people cannot understand. So, Madam Speaker, I beg to support. I thank you.
Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I also rise to support this motion. As my colleagues have said, Honorable Speaker, in the past, you know, the then president was the one who was in charge of Parliament, and Parliament was a department of Office of the President. I remember my long-time member of Parliament, Honorable Francis Mutual, used to tell me they used to go to Arabia House every Thursday to collect an envelope which was the salaries and allowances for the weekend. You can imagine now, Honorable Speaker, Parliamentary Service Commission is independent, the legislative is independent, we are able to be paid by Parliament, we can decide, we plan our own calendar, not like those days when we just look like a department. Honorable Mukatana just said, if the president was unhappy with Parliament, you just dissolve or you suspend the sittings until when he feels fit to do that. Madam Speaker, I'm very happy also with the yesterday's and today's debate on water, because it looks like we are now becoming a bipartisan house. We are looking and we are becoming the champions of devolution, Madam Speaker. In fact, tomorrow, Madam Speaker, as CP committee, we are going to meet with the Council of Governors Committee on Water, and I believe next week when I get an opportunity to debate on the bill, I'll have gotten what they'll have told us and agreed as Council of Governors, as also a Committee of Water. Madam Speaker, when we were dealing with the water service providers from the counties, Madam Speaker, there are so many challenges. Sometimes the waterworks and the waterworks and WASREB, Madam Speaker, when they apply for tariffs, Madam Speaker, this WASREB will sit on the water tariffs even for 2 years. So I believe even if there are issues with the bill, we will relook at it properly. If the sponsor of the bill agrees to amendments that will be brought to members, that we may support. But if it doesn't, then basically it will be an opportunity for us as senators to ensure that we don't kill ourselves by fighting devolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the motion to set up our calendar so that we know what we are supposed to do at what time. As people say, if you don't plan, basically you are planning to fail, but we are planning to succeed as Senate. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Ojenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me contribute right from here. In this session of Senate or of Parliament, Madam Speaker, I think it is clear that Senate must clear pending business. And that pending business, Madam Speaker, includes bills. This morning we were discussing statements submitted to the Security Committee, and most of the statements, Madam Speaker, have not been attended to. I think we have about 15 statements pending responses from the various cabinet secretaries to whom the statements were addressed. And I think it is important that even in this session, that as the calendar for this session is tabled, Madam Speaker, that cabinet secretaries and other leaders to whom questions are addressed answer those questions so that we have responses that we can deal with and that will respond to the needs of the people of our counties. Madam Speaker, I also want to mention that there are key issues that are pending as business before this House. And those key issues, Madam Speaker, touch on various sectors. Colleague Senator Kipsang has mentioned, or Kipsang has touched the water sector and the various proposals or amendments that we have dealt with at the PIC-CP committee. And some of those questions or challenges involve both the national government and the county governments and the sharing of responsibilities. Those are key proposals that would spur the water sector into action and would deliver for the people of our counties. It would also, Madam Speaker, define the various roles of the water service providers. Those are important interventions that this House must make. Yesterday, Madam Speaker, the Senator for Vihiga, Senator Osotsi, made proposals on the Parliamentary Privileges Act, on the interpretation of Article 179 and Article 225, and on the need for cabinet secretaries to attend Senate and the need to enhance penalties for failure to attend Senate. Those are important amendments, Madam Speaker, that must be dealt with so that this Senate rises to the occasion, that when it summons cabinet secretaries and other government officials, that they attend to answer to questions that are posed in Senate. Because, Madam Speaker, that is the only way that this Senate will serve the people of this country. If cabinet secretaries ignore summons, and if Senate committees keep finding the cabinet secretaries and governors in contempt, that will not augur well for the proceedings in this House. And it is only prudent, Madam Speaker, that once the penalties are enhanced to 2 million, then I'm sure, Madam Speaker, that we'll get governors attending to summons from Senate. I think that is important. I rest, Madam Speaker, I support the calendar tabled before this House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Where is the mover? Is the mover? I just saw the mover move, step out. Pursuant to Standing Order 84-2, I wish to make the determination that the matter does not affect counties and put the question. Honorable Senators, I put the question that pursuant to Standing Order 32-1, the Senate approves the calendar regular sessions for the third session of the 13th Parliament, February to December 2024, laid on the table of the Senate on Wednesday, 14th February 2024. Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Next order.
It is now 5:27. We can move to the adjournment motion, which was to move at 5:30. Just 3 minutes.
Honorable members, it's just 4 minutes to 5:30 when we ruled that the adjournment motion be moved. I wish to call upon the mover to proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity. I rise to move a motion under Standing Order number 37 to move that we discuss an issue or a national definite matter, Madam Speaker, on the untimely demise of the legend, the God or great of all times, the late Kevin Kiptum, who died through tragic road accident a few days ago, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this is an important asset to this country. Even, Madam Speaker, as we discuss or eulogize today in the afternoon, and it has been stated officially that we have lost also the great who used to refer himself as Sir Henry Rono, the legendary athlete from my county, Madam Speaker, who went to history of athletics in 1978 by breaking 4 world records within 81 days in 1978. He is the great also of all times, 5,000 meters, 3,000 meters triple chase, and 10,000 meters triple chase that he broke within 81 days in 1978. Unfortunately, he passed on today while receiving medical attention in Nairobi today, Madam Speaker. So it's a big blow to the sporting fraternity, sportsmen and women. Madam Speaker, Kevin Kiptum, who was born on 2nd December 1999 in Chepsamo village, Chepkorio, Elgeyo Marakwet County. And coincidentally, Madam Speaker, his training ground was in Chepkorio when he was about 13 years. And during his primary school at Kipchawat Primary School in Keyo North constituency, like many boys growing up, of course he used to run every morning and evening, like where some of us used to when we were young. Madam Speaker, Kevin came into world or athletics stardom when only at 18 years at Eldoret Half Marathon, he finished first in 21 kilometer in Eldoret in 2018, and in France subsequently the following year, he finished first also in 21 kilometer marathon in France. Madam Speaker, it has to be noted to many Kenyans, Kelvin Kiptum was self-coached. As in, he used, most of the professional athletes, sportsmen and women, have coaches who give them technical advice and support. But Kelvin, Madam Speaker, was somebody who was self-coached until the coach Rwandese who unfortunately perished together on that tragic road accident, Karavis Agizemana, in 2021 came on board. And our condolences and empathies and sympathies with the family came on board and continued. Madam Speaker, Kiptum was due to race in Rotterdam Marathon on 14 April, a run that may have further cemented his fast rising status. Madam Speaker, he was very poised and articulate in his agenda. And he had marathon as he had chosen, Madam Speaker. Kiptum personal best in conclusion, because I know I have 10 minutes so that I allow colleagues to eulogize these great athletes and legend of all times. Kiptum personal best, Madam Speaker, was in 10,000 meters, where he ran 28:27 at Stockholm in 2021. Madam Speaker, in road races, Kiptum ran 10 kilometers under 28 minutes at 17, that is Ultrajet in 2019. A half marathon, Madam Speaker, of 58 minutes 42 seconds in Valencia 2020. And of course, the London Marathon of 2023 of 2 hours, 1 minute and 25 seconds, becoming the third fastest of all time. Madam Speaker, Kevin Kiptum did not stop at that, of shattering the world class of athletics. This happened in Chicago 2023 when he beat the great of all times, my neighbor Eliud Kipchoge, by running at 2 hours, 00 and 35 seconds. A world record which was, unfortunately, Madam Speaker, was ratified by World Athletics. When it was being ratified, it is only a week that unfortunately Kevin perished through that tragic road accident, Madam Speaker. So even the great of all times, the famous 159, although he's an official, Eliud Kipchoge, it did indicate that Kelvin Kiptum was going to be one of the best marathoners that we'll have. And I remember his interview vividly. I want to ask Kenyans, they have been condemning Eliud Kipchoge for saying he did not congratulate. If you are very keen, it is Eliud Kipchoge in press conference after the event that indicated that he is happy that Kelvin Kiptum is becoming one of the best. Madam Speaker, he became to, and of course, as we have heard in interviews from family, he told even his father and the spouse that he felt that he could run under 2 hours. Madam Speaker, I want to urge the police to move with speed and conclude, and I'm happy a number of people yesterday presented themselves to E10 police station, and the 4 ministry have recorded a statement with the relevant agencies. We want our athlete to be buried in a heroic send-off. I'm happy to report to the House that courtesy of His Excellency the President and Kenya Kwanza government, the great legend of sporting fraternity, Kevin Kiptum, will be given a state burial. And I think that is important. As we speak, Madam Speaker, I am informed from reliable sources that the government has directed that the house or the family home be immediately constructed, Madam Speaker. And I think we need to borrow from President Museveni. You saw when they want the gold, you get a car and a house. And I saw even Tinubu Bola, the president of Nigeria, even after Nigeria lost, he gave them, I think, a house and land, apartment, Madam Speaker, of the great, the great players that play African Cup of Nations. We need to motivate. We are not saying, let us motivate athletics, even basketball, volleyball, football. Let us motivate our youth. And I want to urge Elgeyo Marakwet County, and I know my brother Senator Kisang will have a discussion, and even here in Nairobi, let us look for somewhere, if it's a road, if it's a university, let us name this great marathoner of all times against our institutions. I would want to see even a sports academy being named after Kelvin Kiptum, so that it inspires most of the young people, Madam Speaker, so that it go into the future. We have seen some institutions that have been named by people who we do not know their track record, like Gideri, you know, people who just queued eating Gideri while voting, and there's some institution. But this is somebody, Madam Speaker, that has risen the flag. The people who are seated here, we have never risen a flag, even outside the country. Our national anthem has been sung in honor because of these young men, and many others in football, volleyball, basketball. Madam Speaker, let us respect the legacy. I want to ask the soft underbelly of issue of anti-doping, the issue of doping by sportsmen and women. That is one of the soft underbelly that is trying to kill our sports, both in any discipline, be it volleyball, athletics, football. I want to urge our athletes, sportsmen and women, let us run clean. Let us run clean sports, Madam Speaker. Let us ensure, Madam Speaker, that we run clean. Number 3, Madam Speaker, we also need to protect our sportsmen and women. Why is it that other people are given VIP protection, Madam Speaker? This is our national treasures and assets. When they land in America, in other countries, Madam Speaker, they land and they are given VIP protection. We don't know what happened, but I hope the police will put to some speculations matters to rest. Is it hard they should be given a bodyguard and a driver? Is that too much to ask? For somebody, Madam Speaker, are you aware we are paying Brand Kenya a lot of money? But if you ask Brand Kenya to give us business they have secured abroad, they can't, even for $1. But these athletes, when they run, everybody would want to say, I want to visit Kenya, because of wearing that T-shirt that is written Kenya, be it football, volleyball, among others, Madam Speaker. With those very many remarks, I beg to move and request Senator Professor Margaret Kamar to second. I know everybody wanted to second, Madam Speaker, but I know they will get a chance. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity to second this motion. And as I second the motion, my most sincere condolences to the family of Kiptum, Kevin. My sincere condolences to the family of his coach. Mr. Speaker, it was extremely sad for some of us because Kiptum comes from my village of birth. And when I saw the people mourning, I could recognize 70%. Maybe the younger ones only couldn't recognize. It's extremely sad. It hurt everybody because this was something that was least expected. I want to pass my condolences to the whole village of Chief Samo and Chepkorio, our village, and to wish them God's comfort at this very difficult time. Mr. Speaker, the young man Kiptum has been eulogized well by my neighbor Senator Cherargei of Nandi. He has described how the young man grew. This is a man from a very humble background. We have seen very humble people grow to be somebodies because of sports, especially athletics. And it is very, very unfortunate that we have continued to lose some of them through road accidents. I want to support one proposal that has come from Senator Cherargei. It is not very costly for this country to take care of life, especially for such young ones, because when people grow from very humble backgrounds, Madam Speaker, it's very difficult for them to imagine they are going to hire a driver, hire an askari to take care of them. Because these are villagers. They still believe they are free and they can do anything on their own. It is very unfortunate because somebody would be having 2 million in an account and doesn't have a driver and have to drive themselves left to right. These are young people who practice from 5 in the morning, do their other course in the middle of the day, and then go and practice in the evening. So these are people who actually get tired, but they don't realize the tiredness because they are young and they are imagining they can do everything. It would therefore be one of the best things that this country can do to ensure that once we have promising athletes, they should be taken care of. They should be given at least a driver, even if not a bodyguard, a driver. Because that way you remove the issue of driving from them, so that they are not thinking as fast as when they run when they are driving. Because their thinking is just to make sure that they reach where they are going. So, Madam Speaker, I support this, and I want to urge the Ministry of Sports to pay more attention to these very young people. They are very young. 24 years is too young to lose. We said this about Wanjiro the last time, because I was also in Parliament at that time. And we said this is a very young person who has not even built himself a house, and we are losing them. We really need to start taking care of them. They need to get capacity building on how to take care of themselves and take care of the resources that they are receiving. Madam Speaker, as a house, I think we really need to look at sports, because it's also another devolved function. And we'll see what we can do. The stadia that are under our counties, the children themselves are within the counties. Let's have a way of protecting these people so that they don't die careless deaths. Madam Speaker, I don't want to add anything to that, because I can see we have a lot of colleagues, including the Senator from Elgeyo Marakwet. Thank you for allowing me to second, because of the urgency of an agenda I have ahead of me. Thank you so much. But I really want again to say, polo to the family, polo to the whole village, polo to my neighbors, and we pray that God rests Kiptum in eternal peace. Thank you.
Senator Kisang. Honorable Senators.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that pursuant to Standing Order 37, the Senate do adjourn to discuss a definite matter of urgent national importance, namely the untimely death of the current marathon world record holder, Mr. Kevin Kiptum, through a road accident along Kaptagat Eldoret Road. Senator Kisang.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, on behalf of myself, my family, and the great people of Elgeyo Marakwet County, I wish to sincerely convey our condolences to the family of the late Kelvin Kiptum, who died on Sunday night. Madam Speaker, Kiptum was still a very young man of 24 years, who was born in 1999, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the Kelvin grew up in a very humble background in Kipsamoa village of Kaptaroko Ward. I know people have said it's from Chepkoria, and the village is at the boundary in KS South. Madam Speaker, this is a man who struggled. We had the father said, he was the only son, he was the only child. The mother had problems when she gave birth, and as an honorable man, he accepted actually just to stay with one child without even getting another wife. So the father is also a great man, because it is not ordinary. It's not ordinary for an African man to accept when your wife has challenges. It's normally the other way around, that the man wants the wife not to continue giving birth when you have challenges yourself as a man. So the father was a great man. Madam Speaker, in a very record short time, from 2018 up to when Kiptum died, he had done very well, because initially he didn't know that he was going to be a great runner. He trained as an electrician, but along the way he discovered that he had talent, and he started practicing on his own, ran without shoes, he ran on borrowed shoes, and he has died as a legend, Madam Speaker. That's why it is important for the country to honor Kelvin Kiptum. In fact, Madam Speaker, I believe I'll bring a petition to this House so that Kamarin Stadium be renamed as Kelvin Kiptum Stadium. That is in Elgeyo Marakwet County. And we'll ask the CS Sports, luckily he has already advertised for a tender for that stadium to be completed, so that by the time we are opening the stadium, it will not be Camarin Stadium, but Kelvin Kiptum Camarin Stadium in his honor, so that we remember this is a great man. He was going to run actually in Rotterdam under 2 hours, because if he ran in Chicago, 2 hours, 35 seconds. And he was already practicing to ensure he beats that record. And he was training every day. In fact, the wife said that she complained that he was doing a lot of training, but he said he had the stamina. That particular fateful day, Madam Speaker, he left home, went to Prosper to do his errands, family errands, and came to Eldoret. Unfortunately, he died while going home. In fact, the reason why he was late, we are told that the person, the lady who was with them, is one of the workers in the camp, and she had been given off. So they were waiting with the coach, because she said she is arriving in Eldoret late, and she wanted to lift back to the camp. That's why they delayed waiting for the worker, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is important that the Ministry of Sports give our athletes security, they give them drivers. There are not many. We can target the elite sportsmen who have already gotten gold medal, silver, and the others. Because, Madam Speaker, you can imagine this young man, he doesn't see the need to hire a security to get a driver, because even they have not even gotten the money that he won last year. Look at the home where they're coming from. So I hope the ministry is going to assist. We thank the president for accepting to do a state barrier for Kelvin Kiptum, and then also we will ask the government through Minister of Sports to ensure they put up a decent house for the parents and for the young lady, and if possible, they take her up and employ her so that she can maybe further her studies and assist to educate our young children. We also thank the manager, because he has also agreed that we will do a foundation in honor of Kelvin Kiptum. That is very important, Honorable Speaker. Then finally, Madam Speaker, we also lost, less than 2 months ago, we lost another athlete who was running for Uganda, Benjamin Kiplagat, who was killed by thugs in Eldoret. So this is very sad. We need also the police commandant within Washingishu County to beef up security, especially around where athletes are having camps, where athletes are living, so that we don't have to lose our talent, our serious athletes who are bringing a lot of dollars. One of the reasons why maybe the shilling is strengthening, it's because of these athletes. Yeah? Dollars are coming to the country. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we pray that his soul may rest in eternal peace. Thank you.
Senator Eddie.
Madam Speaker, I think that I cannot mourn Kevin enough, together with his coach, Akizimana, who perished in this unfortunate tragedy. But Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say that as a country, in fact, as a house, we do have the power to change the lives of sportsmen in this country. And I won't limit it to athletes, because the way that sportsmen have been treated in this country is completely not good at all. You know, the kind of grace, honor, and glory that these sports people have brought to this country, Madam Speaker, is something that I think is big treasure and big achievement, that the word VIP treatment is an understatement, Madam Speaker. I don't think that the concept should only be about security and protection of their Bill of Rights under Chapter 4 of the Constitution, but I think also appreciating the fact that they lift us in the global map, Madam Speaker, to the extent that they deserve a lot more benefits. If you remember in 1968, Kip Keino brought us wonderful medal, taking it from a very serious American in the Summer Olympics in Mexico City. And up to date, Madam Speaker, apart from million jobs that have been given to Kip Keino, as a way of charity, there hasn't been serious protection and serious support to Kip Keino. Madam Speaker, the other day I watched Eliud Kipchoge, running the sub-2, although unofficial, but the sense of pride that he brought in the world, the sense of inspiration that he brought to young people. And I speak as a young person, seeing such a young man who has died, and the feeling that I had when Kipchoge Eliud ran the sub-2 Ineos marathon, Madam Speaker, and up to date, is left to his small wealth that he might have acquired, that Kenya did not participate in giving him. It's just that the competition that he has gotten is where he has gathered this kind of wealth. Wanjiru has been mentioned in this house. The other day, Faith Kipyegon, Madam Speaker, did a wonderful double of gold medal, actually last year, to this country. The greatest honor that she gets is being invited to Jeff Koinange show and celebrated in Jeff Koinange show, and there is nothing to the name of Faith Kipyegon. Today, as we speak, Madam Speaker, the country cannot forget one young man called Dennis Oliech, who in 2002, Madam Speaker, took this country single-handedly as a captain to Sakafa and made us win Sakafa in 2002. And then, through his own earnings, Madam Speaker, motivated the team, even funded part of the team's bills, so that 2004, he took us to the African Cup of Nations, Madam Speaker. If you look at Dennis Oliech's life today, Madam Speaker, in a country that we have a president, we have senators, we have MPs, my heart bleeds when I look at that young man, Madam Speaker, and the way he has just been left as if he has never contributed anything to this country. Where I come from, Madam Speaker, in Migori County, young people cherish sport because sport unites us. If you come to the Lake region, where you can be able to enjoy good soccer, is Migori County. You know, Migori Youth Academy, that a young man called Aziz started from nothing. Abdi Aziz is a young man who was simply an M-Pesa, attendant. And he has built a team that was in the second league in this country, Madam Speaker. And they almost qualified for the, Premier League. And Madam Speaker, if you look at a young man like Ouma in that team, nobody gives them opportunity to be able to excel. So I think that I want to appeal to us as members of parliament. The political class cannot continue being selfish to the extent that the elite political class in this country enjoys security like 100 policemen. To some extent, 50 policemen, amazing vehicles, amazing retirement packages. And these young people, the youth who are suffering in this country and trying to make a life for themselves. Look at Lupita Nyong'o, Madam Speaker, a wonderful young lady from the Lake region, coming and participating in the creative industry and becoming the first one to be recognized with serious awards when she did the, when she did the 12 years as slave, Madam Speaker. All that Lupita Nyong'o gets in this country is simple glory by being invited in some few interviews here and there. We need to change our mindset. And I'm going to invite my friend, Senator Chege, as I finish, Madam Speaker, in 2 seconds. Senator Chege, you are a senior member, a ranking member of this House. I want the two of us to sit down and come up with a serious bill that can be able to look at the life of our young men and women in the sporting industry and in the creative industry so that we give them the best that they deserve for the glory that they bring in this country.
Senator Mungatana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to join my colleagues in extending my condolences to Kelvin and his family. Madam Speaker, a lot has been said, and I want to agree with everything that has been said today and add a few things. Madam Speaker, in 2010, March, the United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution number 64 of 255 on fatalities that happen on our roads. The target at that time, Madam Speaker, was that they want to reduce the global fatalities by 50%. Madam Speaker, I am addressing road safety because this is what has taken our bright shining star away. In this country, when you localize those figures, Madam Speaker, the NTSA tells us that we are losing about 3,000 lives every year to fatal road accidents. Madam Speaker, the cost of that has been put by Treasury to be about 300 billion, which is roughly 5% of our GDP. So in real times, we are losing the best of our population, the younger people. And I've said it in other forums, Madam Speaker, that when we are younger, we tend to think that that car must go beyond 120. You must step and see how it feels if the accelerator reaches the floorboards. Madam Speaker, and a lot of us are here, all of us, I think we have had an accident here and there, and especially when we were younger. Madam Speaker, it will cost nothing to this government to put something in the curriculum that creates manners in road safety. It has to be inbuilt from when we are young. The way children nowadays are taught that you don't just throw pieces of paper on the road. The way that if you try to even throw a plastic bottle, your children will tell you, Dad, you're littering. It's the same way that manners on road safety should be imbued within our children as we grow. And I hope the Minister for Education is also listening to this, because this is the loss we suffer is because of small things like this. We forget to tell our children. Children grow up when the hormones are raging. Just when you get your first car, you get killed. And nowadays, Madam Speaker, there's a new fashion. Our children will tell you, my ambition is to get a motorbike. And every time you hear a motorbike, your heart shudders, because you know how you used to be at that age, and you used to ride a ramshackle. But it was safer than what these people are. So, Madam Speaker, I believe that there is a case for us to adjust our curricula to increase the sensitivity around road safety. Madam Speaker, road safety should not be defined as arresting people, because NTSA has the funds, NTSA are the people who are there. Why can they create road champions? Madam Speaker, on National Condom Days, you have these guys walking all over. Why can't we have national road safety champions in big places like Voi, on us who travel down towards the coast, in places like Naikuru, Naivasha, for those who use that other road? We should have people always reminding us. It is not enough to put a car that has had a traffic accident to display. That's a step, but we need people to be talked to, matatu drivers, people to be talked to be preached to, because when we have a culture change in this country, Madam Speaker, we will be able to move forward. And also, finally, Madam Speaker, lighting. This goes to county government and national governments. On our highways, there are no lights. No lights at all, and no effort is put to put lights on those roads. Madam Speaker, where when you watch the television, you see where we lost Kelvin, it was completely dark. And that is a place which is misty. That's what the OCS was telling us, who was on the scene of what happened. Madam Speaker, we need lighting, and this is an issue that will cost so little as compared to what we are losing in this country, Madam Speaker. 300 billion annually is not a small amount. And if we can put our money where it matters, then we should not be losing people like this, valuable assets like this, Madam Speaker. And I want to finish by saying, please let us not shed crocodile tears. When we lost the last Vice President, Wamalwa Kijwana, the government went out, we bought a house, we did what during Mwai Kibaki's time. We can do the same for Mama Kelvin Kiptum na watoto wake. We can do the same. We can buy them these things. The government can afford it, and the county government can support it, Madam Speaker. Let us not leave these people the way they are and shed crocodile tears, put Bendera half-mast, and then we give them nothing. It will be a shame to our country. Kelvin Kiptum will wake up and curse this country if his family and children are not taken care by us. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to add my voice to this unfortunate incident. I rise to mourn the young man, Kiptum, and the coach, and to feel with the bereaved family of Kiptum. Madam Speaker, as I rise, I look at the hopeless widow of Kiptum. I saw her, the young lady, mourn. I saw the young lady, the young widow of the coach, and I feel for all of them, including the community that Kiptum comes from, and all Kenyans in general. Madam Speaker, accidents have become really a disaster in this country. The other time when this house was discussing Shakahola, I was thinking, how many Kenyans lose their lives in our roads daily? Every night we hear of buses crashing, some from Kampala crashing in the middle of the night and killing over tens of people. And Madam Speaker, when the buses crash or the accidents that we get, we only hear of the ones that are lost at that particular scene of the accident. But look at the massive injuries that occur and the people that are taken to hospital. A number of them lose their lives. A number of them, even if they survive, they can never go on with their lives, Madam Speaker. And on this note, Madam Speaker, as I mourn Kiptum, I also mourn the many, many borders that lose their lives in this country. Madam Speaker, in the sub-county where I come from, that is Ndewa constituency, it's an everyday happening. We have a company called Sukari Industries. The tractors from that Sukari industry, the daily occurrence in my constituency, Madam Speaker, is either pedestrians that are crashed on the roads, adding to the many number of accidents that we are speaking about. The many borders that are crashed in their constituency, losing their lives to the tractors owned by Sukari industry. Madam Speaker, we have one young man that lost his life in Ndewa, just amongst the many that we have in that constituency, called Anyona. He joins the inventory of sports people. He joins Kiptum. He lost his life, a sportsman, a young man that was struggling in the village, training schools in the vicinity, training netballers and training volleyballers. That man lost his life one evening when he was driving home, his border, because of a careless motorist who had been at a pub drinking the whole day. Then he leaves driving while drunk. He crashed that man, and we lost that young man, Anyona, leaving two young widows with younger children, Madam Speaker. That is the story we have as we mourn Kiptum today. But the story of Ndewa will also be written in the books of history in this country because of Sukari industry. We are losing even the loaders, even the workers of that company. So accidents, Madam Speaker, is one incident that this country must look into, Madam Speaker. I challenge the county government where Kiptum comes from, that as we bury and as we mourn and bury Kiptum, the county government and even the national government must come, because Kiptum was an investment to this country. The county government must come up and pronounce itself on how they are going to take care of the welfare of that young family that Kiptum leaves behind. Madam Speaker, as I wind up on my speech, I would like to say that accidents are a disaster in this country, and the country must look into it. We must not keep on losing our people, not only athletes, but even the pedestrians on the roads. The matatu, people boarding matatus on our roads. We see the Nissans crashing on the roads every day. What is our traffic department doing? Other than other than enforcing the laws, then that department must embark on a public education for our people. Madam Speaker, I support and I mourn Kiptum, and we keep on also feeling for the bereaved family and the community that it comes from and Kenyans at large. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Thangwa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I also rise to give my condolences to the family of Kiptum and especially his father, Cheruyot, who you could see the pain when he said his only son is gone, Madam Speaker. But as we speak, when I hear maybe they need drivers, maybe they need security, I ask myself, you know, in our culture, when you get money and you start having all these things, the community might shun you. They say, you just got money, now you're not even talking to us, you have a car, you have a driver. But I think what we really need is two things, Madam Speaker. That is sensitization, education. When somebody amasses such kind of maybe wealth, and also you're known all over, you become a celebrity, overnight, all you need is to be trained on how to manage that, Madam Speaker. Because if you are not trained, you might behave in a way that people might think you're not doing what you're supposed to do, Madam Speaker. I know the late Samuel Wanjiru, people used to speak about him after he became famous. And you know, even the way he was walking and talking, and people could say, this person is not talking the way he was talking earlier. And maybe because, Madam Speaker, they are not told what to do once you get to such status, Madam Speaker. Education is very important. They even need to be taught how to manage their finances, Madam Speaker. Because, as it was said here, you get millions of shillings overnight. And then, you didn't even have a few coins, but you get millions overnight. The way you treat yourself and treat others always changes, Madam Speaker. So, as I mourn Kiptum, I believe going forward, all those people who carry the flag high, our flag high, must be treated in a manner that they're given special treatment and, of course, special recognition. Madam Speaker, in the US, all those military personnel, they don't queue at the airports, Madam Speaker. They even have their counter for veterans and military personnel because they do something for that country and they are recognized for that. I believe we can do that as a country to give our sportsmen and women recognition so that as they are even trained and educated on how to live with the new fame, they'll be able also to, what I can say, kujivunia kwa wa Kenya, Madam Speaker. The issue of accidents. I am the chairman of the Roads and Transportation Committee. And in the last session, we invited the NTSA boss to come and explain to us what they are doing to curb road carnage. And Madam Speaker, we were not satisfied with what we had as a committee, with what we had from the Inspector General, because of the traffic police, and of course from the NTSA boss. And we are going to invite him again to appear before our committee to come and explain what step they have taken. Because there was confusion, Madam Speaker. There is confusion in the police department and there is confusion in the NTSA. NTSA say we are only doing policy. Police say we are only implementing what NTSA say. So, Madam Speaker, I think there is disconnect between who is supposed to man our roads, who is supposed to man our transportation, because everybody is blaming the other, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you know, in the previous regime, there were presidential recommendations and awards that were given. And were given to some people who could not, I mean, they did not deserve such an award. When we have these kind of sportsmen and women who are not recognized. You can imagine an award was given by somebody for holding Githeri the whole day, Madam Speaker, and is given a presidential recommendation because he was queuing to vote holding Githeri, Madam Speaker. Yet we have people who have done so much for this country. They wake up very early in the morning to practice and raise our flag higher, and then they don't get the right recognition. I want to conclude by saying, what are our governors doing, Madam Speaker? Sport is devolved. They should have kitty for supporting these sportsmen and women, Madam Speaker. Instead of getting money to give goons to follow them around, Madam Speaker. Instead of just having handouts to give people to follow you around, can you do something for the sportsmen and women of your county? So that when they raise the flag higher, they also raise the flag of that county, Madam Speaker. And I think we need to do something for these governors, Madam Speaker, because I believe most of them do not know why they were there, Madam Speaker. And that's why I'm asking this House, because I'm bringing the amendment of Standing Order 58, Madam Speaker, to introduce a Standing Order 59, to have governors come and stand here, just like the way we have CSs, Madam Speaker, so that they can answer some of these few questions. Because this is the only place they will be able to be grilled and answer questions without their goons around, without anybody intimidating anybody. But here they can answer those questions, and the people at home will hear and understand.
Senator Professor Ojenda.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me come to the dispatch desk to commiserate with the family of the late Kelvin Kiptum in solidarity with the Senator for Elgeyo Marakwet and the Senator for Nandi. Madam Speaker, running sub 2-2 in the marathon for 5 times is no mean task. The late Kelvin Kiptum exhibited excellence both in the Valencia, Chicago, and the London marathons. And I think, Madam Speaker, it is time that this country takes sports and sportsmen and women seriously. I say this, Madam Speaker, because there are certainly flaws that will be traced to the last minute that led to the death of the late Kelvin Kiptum. Not just the accident, Madam Speaker, but if at all, and I say this, Madam Speaker, road safety, because the late Kelvin Kiptum died in a black spot after getting an accident in a turn and unsuccessfully and sadly losing his life with his coach. Let me say this, Madam Speaker, that the development of sports under the Sports Act 2013 must include other measures that would ensure that sportsmen and women, as the Senator for Kiambu has said, are trained wholly so that they become whole persons, not only to manage their resources, but also to continually understand their responsibility to themselves and to the nation. Madam Speaker, it is in this spirit that we will be bringing before this Senate the Sports Academies Bill 2024 that will deal with the questions that deal with not just sports, but sportsmen, sports training, and the role of county governments. So that county governments must take a responsibility to ensure that their sportsmen are not only taken care of, but their welfare is considered in its entirety. Madam Speaker, this country mourns a champion who would have contributed more because the potential of the late Kelvin Kiptum was unexploited. He was at the dawn of his career, a young man of only 24 years. And it must be a lesson to those who have been left behind, the young athletes, that they must also dedicate not just their training to the led Kelvin Kiptum, but also to emulate and to go further and beyond. Madam Speaker, how I pray that the county government of Elgeyo Marakwet can give the late Kelvin Kiptum a deserving send-off, and I also urge the national government and the state to take up this matter seriously. I'm glad, Madam Speaker, that the Minister for Sports, Ababu Namwamba, has taken up this matter seriously, and that this is the way to go, including renaming the stadium in Elgeyo Marakwet in the name of the late Kelvin Kiptum. I pray, Madam Speaker, I support the adjournment motion. When we lose heroes in this country, we must celebrate them. But it is more important, Madam Speaker, to celebrate them during lifetime. And as the Senator for Kiambua said, youth, sports, the development of youth and sports will eradicate some of the vices that the Senator has referred to. And it is upon each Senator and each elected member to also enhance or improve sports during your free times by allowing the youth to compete in sports. That way you will remove some of the people that the Senator has called goons from the streets. I think they're not goons, those are security, and we must also respect them because they also play a role. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator Wanyonka.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to vent and look at this issue. I would like to correct my leader, Honorable the Senator of Kisumu County, that goons are goons. They cannot be part of security. When you need security, you go to the police and you ask them to give you the security that you need. If he doesn't have a problem with goons in his county, in my county, I'm suffering from that ineptitude, Your Excellency. I want to say that I heard the story about when the late Kiptum died, because I was in the studio with the Honorable Madam Sholei. And she was actually in tears because she said the week before he had visited her house and they had discussed, and they were discussing the issues about how he had done well and what was the agenda and what needed to be done. In fact, there was a small tangential excitement about the discussions according to her, and that is they were planning to introduce a marathon for Eldoret City when it was going to be launched in December, and she was saying they were very excited about all that. Unfortunately, the gentleman passed on. I've listened very carefully what my colleagues have talked about. And this is something in our republic we keep talking about over and over and over. Madam Speaker, the way we handle, leave alone even the athletes, the way we handle ourselves. You have a Kenyan who struggles and goes and wants to become a superstar, whether they are going to be actors, whether they're going to be athletes, whether they're going to be footballers. And normally we treat them casually, Madam Speaker, very casually. The heroes that we were supposed to reward and to encourage so that then they can mentor the young athletes, they can mentor the young successful footballers, they can mentor the young artists, content creators and all that. The problem you have, Madam Speaker, is that even when you have government funding to some of these things, it usually never gets to the people who actually deserve this money. The second issue that we either also deal with it casually or we deal with it ineptly is the issue that once an athlete in Kenya has been successful and he has done well, and you know there are time bracket, the time from when somebody does well and the time when he gets out of the running or the playing of football. After they have, when they get into that, the period is normally not more than 5 years. You remember the Rudisha story, you remember all these great athletes, they take a very short time because the training wears down the body and everything. Why is it that we do not even create a special insurance for our athletes? Why is it that when our athletes go for practice and they run, we don't even give them special insurance to deal with their injuries, to deal with their challenges? Madam Speaker, I don't even think in our republic we have a single university that will give students a scholarship because they run well. We don't have that. We don't have a single university in Kenya that will take students who are Kenyans and give them an opportunity so that then they can then excel and they can make our country grow better. Madam Speaker, if you're aware, which I'm sure you are, about 2 months ago, a Kenyan girl was actually number 2 in the Wimbledon Championship. She's called, her name passes me right now. She's called Kutonyi. Because I attended the Lawn Tennis Association Championship. It was actually an international event. And nobody shows up. The minister doesn't show up. The deputy minister doesn't, or whoever that is in charge in the ministry doesn't show up. The Kenya Lawn Tennis Association is struggling because of CBC. They're supposed to introduce tennis into the schools. Nobody listens to them. I mean, we have all the potential that we need to succeed and make sure our country produces the best athletes. Look at what is happening to our football. We can't even go to the Africa Championships. The stars that used to be there, the Oliechis, the gentleman who was playing for Liverpool, look at all of them. Once they finish playing football, they can't even given a simple job in the government. Before, athletes would be rewarded at the government because they would then continue with their lives as they are trying to engage also in sports to encourage the young ones to work. I would like to plead with this House. I would like to plead with our counties. And my colleagues, Senator Ojienda said it very well. Why are the county governments not seriously? I am sure if you check out, Madam Speaker, to see how many county governments have got sports directors, and see whether these sports directors are given funds so that then they can encourage the youths to participate in sports. In fact, if it wasn't for CDF, which I saw in the last financial year, had so many activities running in Kisii County. We had football tournaments from the members of parliament. We had football tournaments by the women rep. And I am trying to encourage the county governments to look at sports as an investment, as it can be a tourist attraction, it can be a financial generating venture.
Thank you. The tennis player is Angela Okutoi. Senator Murgur.
Very much, Madam Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also add my voice to those of my colleagues. We are remembering a very dynamic person that came into the hands of his family in Elgeyo Marakwet, and he was a hope to the family as the father expressed how much hope there was in him, and also with the fact that he's an only child really crushed that family when the loss of his life came stepping at the door of this family. He was a hope for the parents and also the community, and also his own little children who are orphans now and hopeless. And also sports fraternity in general, both in Uasin Gishu, which is actually the home of champions. And so there was a lot of eyes looking at this person and up to this person to mentor many into the athletic fraternity, and let alone Kenya and the whole world. And then he was also a hope and a future of Kipchoge, or Kipchoge, who is the marathon holder now, Kipchoge will soon retire, and Kenya was actually in a very good position of having a replacer of Kipchoge, Eliud Kipchoge. And so as a country where our hope has really been tarnished, and the hope of sports as a whole, because we do not have a replacement now that we are aware of to take over from Kipchoge, who will probably soon retire. And this should be awakening situation for Kenya as a country to really take sports very seriously, in that we should be investing more and have these professionals maybe train more about how to take care of themselves, both financially and physically, and also the kind of cars they drive should be safe, such that they are reliable cars that can be protective to their lives and so on, and also with the seriousness that we should, as a country, look into the safety on our roads, so that not only these professionals, but every person and other professionals in Kenya, because we have lost a lot of professional people through these dark spots and so on, because we are probably not careful even to mark those dark spots and make the users aware as to what is coming ahead of them. And also awakening in that athletes should really be watchful and take care of themselves, because they are out there, and there is a lot out there that they should be watchful about. And so we are mourning a very a person that we looked up to, and our future for athletics. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, having concluded debates on the adjournment motion and further to standing order number 34-7, the Senate stands adjourned until Tuesday, 20th February 2024 at 2:30.
Debate on the annual estimates and committee of supply, the leader of the majority party. This that the pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 97-1, that the House orders each speech in a debate on the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates contemplated under the Standing Orders 239 and 240 be limited as follows: that the general supply debate has a maximum of 3 sittings within 30 minutes for the mover in moving, and 15 minutes in replying, to a maximum of 15 minutes for each of the chairpersons of the departmental committees, and a maximum of 10 minutes for any other member speaking, except the leader of the majority party and the leader of the minority party, who shall be limited to a maximum of 15 minutes each, and that the priority in speaking be accorded to the leader of the majority party. And the Speaker of the National Assembly Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula has walked in to the House for the third session of the afternoon sitting, today being Wednesday, February 14, the session that just commences at 2:30. And I now hand over you to the plenary.
Waheshimiwa, tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umetua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala haki wa wanadamu, tukusihi utazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako ambao wameridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri yetu. Tukuomba uteremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kuyafikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako siendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, ufanisi na heri ya nchi yetu na wale ambao haja zao umesikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. We have quorum to transact business. This is very encouraging so far. Clerk.
24 in the afternoon sitting. Honorable Speaker, the first item is 24 in the afternoon sitting. Honorable Speaker, the first item is approval granted under Article 223 of the Constitution from the Contingencies Fund in the financial year 2023-2024 from the National Treasury. Second, reports of the Auditor General and financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 and the certificates therein in respect of the following: A, Witness Protection Agency Staff Housing Mortgage Scheme Funding; Office of the Registrar of Political Parties Staff Mortgage and Car Loan Schemes; C, State Officers and Public Officers Motor Car Loan Scheme Fund; D, Judiciary Mortgage Scheme; E, the Judiciary; F, Business Registration Service; G, State Law Office and Department of Justice; H, Office of the Registrar of Political Parties; I, Teacher Service Commission; J, State Department for Environment and Climate Change; K, Development Receiver of Revenue Statements; I, Revenue Statements of the Business Registration Services; and lastly, Honorable Speaker, Office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Thank you. Chairperson, Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee. Mulyungi, is that you? Go ahead. Are you ready?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, 13th February 2024. Second report of the Decentralized Funds Accounts Committee.